Nelson Mandela's death that never happened. The Mandela Effect gets its name from a memory that many people swear they experienced. A memory that, according to the timeline we're in now, never happened. It's the memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. People remember it vividly. They recall watching the news, hearing about riots in South Africa, seeing the funeral broadcast on television. Some say they even learned about it in school. They remember mourning, speeches, a national tragedy. But none of that happened. Not in this version of reality. Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990. He became the president of South Africa in 1994, and he lived until 2013, when he passed away peacefully at the age of 95. So how did so many people, from so many different places, remember it differently? Not vaguely, exactly. The same scenes, the same coverage, the same certainty that they had seen it with their own eyes. This strange discrepancy is what led to the term the Mandela Effect. It was coined by Fiona Broome, who realized she wasn't alone in this memory. And once people started talking about it, they found others who remembered the same event, down to the smallest detail. It's not about confusion or forgetfulness. It's about the eerie feeling of certainty, about remembering something that the world tells you never happened. There's no clear explanation. Some say it's how memory works, that the brain fills in blanks. Others think it points to something deeper, parallel timelines, alternate histories, or even small shifts in reality itself. Whatever the cause, the death of Nelson Mandela, a death that officially never happened when so many thought it did, became the starting point for something much stranger. Luke, I am your father. That is one of the most quoted lines in movie history. A phrase so iconic, even people who've never seen Star Wars can repeat it on command. Deep voice, slow breath, a dramatic pause. Luke, I am your father. But that line doesn't exist. In The Empire Strikes Back, during the famous scene where Darth Vader reveals his true identity to Luke, the words spoken are different. The actual line is, "No, I am your father." There's no Luke in it at all. It's a small change, just a missing name. But for many, it changes everything. People remember it clearly. They remember watching the scene, feeling the twist, hearing the name. They've said it themselves, quoted it, laughed about it in parody, skits, and impressions. And now when they go back to rewatch the scene, it feels unfamiliar, like something's been edited or quietly rewritten. Of course, some say it's just a natural evolution, that the line was misquoted over time, and the incorrect version spread through pop culture. After all, Luke, I'm your father, makes more sense outside of context. It tells you what the line means, even if you've never seen the film. That might be true, but others aren't so sure, because this isn't just about forgetting. It's about the unsettling feeling of remembering something perfectly, and finding out it never existed. There's no conspiracy here, no twist-ending explanation, just the quiet discomfort of being sure, absolutely sure, of something, and realizing the world disagrees. And that's where the Mandela Effect begins to dig a little deeper. It makes you pause, makes you think. Because if a line this famous can shift under your feet, then maybe memory isn't as solid as we'd like to believe. The Berenstain Bears. For many people, their first experience with the Mandela Effect doesn't come from politics or film. It comes from a children's book, a bear family, living in a treehouse, solving everyday problems in a soft watercolor world. The name? The Berenstain Bears. At least, that's how many remember it, spelled with an E-I-N at the end. But the official name, across every known copy of the books and TV shows, is different. It's spelled with an A, Berenstain. This version appears consistently in print, on merchandise, on old television recordings, and even in original first edition from the 1960s. There's no official trace of the Berenstain spelling, no alternate printing, no known misprints from the publisher. All existing records, even ones kept in storage for decades, show the name as Berenstain. Still, countless people say they remember it the other way. Not casually, clearly. They say they remember seeing Berenstain written on the books they grew up with. They remember how their parents pronounced it. Some say they even corrected others who got it wrong. But there's no physical evidence of that version existing. The name comes from the authors, Stan and Jan Berenstain. That's how they spelled their last name, and that's how it appeared on all official materials since the first book was published in 1962. Nothing has changed in the records. Despite this, discussion online showed thousands of people sharing the same conflicting memory. Forum posts, Reddit threads, and video compilations highlight the confusion. But every image of the books, every preserved copy, whether printed decades ago or more recently, all confirm one thing: it's not Berenstain, it's Berenstain. The Monopoly Man never had a monocle. Rich Uncle Pennybag is one of the most recognizable characters in classic board game history. With his top hat, mustache, and tuxedo, he's appeared on Monopoly boxes, in commercials, and in pop culture reference for generations. Many people remember one detail in particular: the monocle, a small round lens sitting on one eye, attached to a thin string. They picture him holding it, adjusting it. They've seen it in costumes and cartoons. It's one of the features people associate most with the character. But the Monopoly Man has never worn a monocle. Not in official game art, not in promotional material, not in any edition of Monopoly released by Hasbro or Parker Brothers. Every version of his design shows him with a top hat, bow tie, cane, and round face, but no monocle. Despite this, many people insist they remember it differently. They can describe it in detail. Some say they even dressed up as the Monopoly Man with a monocle for Halloween. Others recall seeing it in cartoons or in parody sketches where he's drawn with one. But in every piece of original art from the board game, past and present, the monocle simply isn't there. One possible explanation is visual confusion with other characters, like Mr. Peanut, who does wear a monocle. Both are wealthy cartoon figures with similar features: top hats, canes, formal wear. Over time, the features may have overlapped in memory, but this doesn't explain why so many people are so sure of what they remember. Regardless, in all official source, the Monopoly Man has always had the same look, and a monocle has never been part of it. Pikachu's tail never had a black tip. Pikachu is one of the most recognizable animated characters in the world. As the mascot of the Pokemon franchise, its yellow fur, red cheeks, and lightning bolt-shaped tail have been a constant presence in games, television, merchandise, and pop culture since the 1990s. But many people remember a different detail about Pikachu's appearance, specifically its tail. They recall the tail having a black tip at the end, not a stripe or a full section, but a clear, black-colored tip at the very end of the tail. Some say it was always there. Others say it was part of the original cartoon or early trading cards. But Pikachu's tail has never had a black tip in all official artwork from the Pokemon Company, including the original game sprites, anime episodes, toy packaging, and promotional illustrations. Pikachu's tail is entirely yellow, with a brown patch at the base where it meets the body. There has never been a black section at the end of the tail. This version appears consistently across all regions, versions, and time periods. From early Game Boy titles to modern Nintendo Switch games, the tail has remained the same. Even in vintage promotional items from the 1990s, the design is unchanged. Despite this, the memory persists. Fans continue to express surprise when they find out. Some say they distinctly recall drawing Pikachu as a kid with a black-tipped tail. Others are convinced they saw it that way in the original cartoon. But no screenshots or official visuals have confirmed this variation. It does not appear in any known episode, game, or product. There is also confusion with Pikachu's ears, which do have black tips. That visual detail may have contributed to a blending of features over time, creating a false memory. Still, the official record is consistent. Pikachu's tail has always been yellow, with no black on the tip. Fruit of the Loom never had a cornucopia. The Fruit of the Loom logo is one of the most well-known in American retail. For decades, it's appeared on packaging for underwear, undershirts, and other basics, usually featuring a colorful cluster of fruit, grapes, apples, leaves, and other produce arranged closely together. Many people distinctly remember one specific detail, a cornucopia, a large, woven horn behind the fruit, often called a horn of plenty. They recall the fruit spilling out from it, resting in or around the curved opening. To them, the cornucopia was a central part of the logo's identity, a symbol that made sense, visually and thematically. But according to all official records, the Fruit of the Loom logo has never featured a cornucopia. Across every version of the logo, dating back to the company's founding in the 1800s, there is no evidence of a cornucopia ever being used. The fruit has always appeared on its own, sometimes more realistic, sometimes stylized, but never placed inside or emerging from a horn. Old packaging, advertisements, TV commercials, and company archives all show the same thing. Fruit only. No horn, no woven basket, no cornucopia. This surprised many people. Online forums are filled with discussions where users share the same visual memory. Some say they clearly remember the horn behind the fruit from their childhood. Others mention how the image seems so natural, they never questioned it. Even those who have worked in retail or owned Fruit of the Loom clothing for years have expressed confusion. Still, every official logo file and all historical documentation from the brand show no cornucopia, only the fruit itself, arranged in a pile, sometimes framed by leaves, but always alone. The company has never acknowledged using one, and no archived materials have surfaced to suggest otherwise. The cornucopia, for those who remember it, simply isn't there. Mirror, mirror on the wall was never said. For generations, one line has been closely tied to the image of fairy tales and childhood storytelling. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? It's one of the most quoted phrases from Disney's early classics, especially from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Many people remember the evil queen standing before her mirror, uttering those exact words. The phrase has been repeated in books, TV shows, parody sketches, commercials, and countless retellings of the fairy tale. But in the original 1937 Disney film, the queen never says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall." The actual line is, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" That's how it's said in the movie, not just once, but each time the queen speaks to her mirror. Magic mirror, not mirror, mirror. The phrasing has been consistent in every official release of the film, from original theatrical reels to modern digital editions. Still, a large number of people remember it differently. They remember mirror, mirror clearly. Some say they memorize it that way as children. Others recall it being quoted in school plays or written in storybooks. And the misquote is so widespread that it often appears in pop culture reference as if it were canon. But when reviewing the film itself, there is no version where the queen uses the double mirror phrase. It simply doesn't exist in the Disney version. Older written versions of the Snow White tale, such as those by the brother Grimm, do feature mirror, mirror in English translations, which may have contributed to the confusion. But in the Disney version, it's always been magic mirror. The quote, as remembered by so many, isn't found in the official source. In Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the queen speaks only to the magic mirror. KitKat has never had a dash. KitKat is one of the most popular chocolate bars in the world. Its red wrapper, crisp wafer layers, and familiar jingle, "Have a break, have a KitKat," have made it a household name for decades. But when people picture the logo in their minds, many recall a small but specific detail, a hyphen between the words Kit and Cat. They remember it as KitKat, with a dash separating the two parts of the name. Some say they remember reading it that way on the packaging. Others believe they saw it printed on vending machines or displayed on store shelves for years. But officially, the KitKat logo has never included a dash. From Nestlé's records and product archives to current and vintage packaging, the name has always been styled as a single word, KitKat, no hyphen. The letters are capitalized and placed close together, often with a subtle curve to the font, but no line, no separation. This is consistent across all global markets, including the U.S., where the brand is owned by Hershey, and internationally, where it's produced by Nestlé. Even retro versions of the logo from decades ago, dating back to its original release in the 1930s, show no evidence of a dash ever being part of the design. Still, the memory of the hyphen is widespread. Some people are convinced they've seen it printed that way. Others claim they remember throwing away wrappers that clearly had a dash, but when images of vintage packaging are examined, none include the hyphen people recall. The confusion may come from the way the name is often spoken or written informally, where people naturally separate the two syllables. Or perhaps it's a case of visual familiarity, inserting the dash where the space feels like it belongs. Regardless, in all official branding and product history, KitKat has always been spelled as a single word. There has never been a dash between kit and cat. Febreze is spelled with one E. Febreze is a popular household product used to eliminate odors. Known for its light scent and spray bottle packaging, it's been found in millions of homes for decades. The name is instantly recognizable, or at least it seems like it should be. Many people remember it being spelled Febreze, with two E's in the second half. The spelling Febreze feels natural to some. It matches how the word sounds when spoken aloud, and resembles other words like breeze, which also contain the double E. But the official spelling of the product is different. It's Febreze, with only one E in the second syllable. This spelling appears on all bottles, cans, promotional materials, and official product listings from Procter & Gamble, the company that manufactures it. It's consistent across regions, product lines, and even in older packaging from when the product first entered the market in the late 1990s. Despite this, many consumers insist they remember seeing it spelled Febreze on store shelves. Some say they bought it for years without noticing. Others recall spelling it that way instinctively, even when searching for it online or writing it down on a shopping list. Yet when they check old photos, saved bottles, or advertisements, they find only the Febreze version. The name was originally created as a combination of fabric and breeze, and the unique spelling may have been chosen for branding purposes. But for those who remember the double E, the change feels jarring. Not because the product itself has changed, but because the memory of how it looked, printed on a bottle, sitting under a sink or on a shelf, doesn't seem to match what's there now. There are no known records of the brand ever using Febreze officially. In every version, from launch to today, the correct spelling is, and always has been, Febreze with a single E in the second half. Looney Tunes, not Looney Tunes. For many, Looney Tunes was a staple of childhood. Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, characters that defined a generation of animation. Whether watched on television, VHS tapes, or Saturday morning cartoon blocks, the name Looney Tunes brings back a strong sense of nostalgia. But the way many people remember the name of the show isn't the way it's officially spelled. A large number of viewers recall it being Looney Tunes, Toons. The word Toons feels fitting. It's short for cartoons, and given that the show is entirely animated, the spelling makes intuitive sense. In fact, the term toon became so common in pop culture that it seemed natural that Looney Tunes would be the correct title. But it's not. The official title is Looney Tunes, Tunes, like music. This is how it has appeared on every official logo, title card, and piece of merchandise since the series began in the early 1930s. The word Toons was chosen because the original cartoons were heavily focused on musical scores and synchronized animation, a nod to Disney's Silly Symphonies, which had been popular at the time. Warner Bros. Created Looney Tunes and its sister series, Merry Melodies, as a direct musical competitor. Over time, the musical theme became less central, and the character became the main attraction. As the years passed, people gradually started remembering the show as being called Looney Tunes, especially as the word toon became more commonly associated with animated characters. But in all official materials, from black and white episodes to color reboots, the name has always remained the same, Looney Tunes. Within you, there are no known versions, official or promotional, where the title is spelled Toons. Curious George never had a tail. Curious George is a classic character in children's literature, a small, adventurous monkey who often finds himself in trouble, only to be gently guided back by the man with the yellow hat. He's been featured in books, cartoons, movies, and toys for over 80 years, becoming one of the most recognizable animal characters in children's media. But there's something unusual about him that many people don't seem to notice at first. Curious George has never had a tail. This fact surprised a lot of people. When asked to picture him, many describe a little monkey swinging from trees, hanging off branches, or balancing on a tail. Some even remember seeing him use it in the cartoon or in the illustrations from the books. The image of a monkey without a tail feels incomplete for many, like something is missing. But in every official illustration, animation, or piece of merchandise since his creation in 1941, Curious George has never been drawn with a tail. Not a short one, not a curled one, not even a stub. He's consistently shown with no tail at all, often using his arms, feet, and body language to express motion and emotion. One explanation may be rooted in biology. While he's often referred to as a monkey, Curious George's design more closely resembles that of an ape, possibly a chimpanzee. And apes, unlike monkeys, don't have tails. But the books never specify what species George is, and the name monkey is used repeatedly throughout the series, adding to the confusion. Even so, illustration going back to the very first Curious George book by H.A. Ray and Margaret Ray show him without a tail, and every animated adaptation has kept this consistent. There are no official images, episodes, or publication that show Curious George with a tail. Though many remember him having one, the character has always been tail-free. Froot Loops is a colorful, fruit-flavored breakfast cereal that's been on grocery store shelves for generations, known for its bright ring-shaped pieces and mascot, Toucan Sam. The cereal is a familiar sight in kitchen cabinets and cereal aisles around the world. But for many people, there's something odd about the way the name is spelled. A large number of people remember the cereal being called Froot Loops, spelled the usual way, F-R-U-I-T. That spelling seems logical. The cereal is fruit-flavored. Toucan Sam often talks about following his nose to find the fruity taste, and most products that are fruit-based tend to use the regular spelling of the word. But the official name is, and always has been, Froot Loops, spelled F-R-O-O-T. This spelling appears on every version of the cereal box, from the earliest designs in the 1960s to the modern packages on shelves today. In fact, the double O in fruit is often stylized using two of the cereal's colorful loops, replacing the letters in the logo. The altered spelling was a deliberate marketing choice. Since the cereal doesn't contain real fruit, the word fruit was invented to reflect the flavor without making a literal claim. It also helped the brand stand out visually. Over time, the stylized spelling became part of the cereal's identity, but many consumers still misremember it as fruit. Some say they distinctly remember the original box using the traditional spelling. Others say they didn't notice the change until much later in life, or only caught it while searching for the cereal online. There's no known version of the product, official or otherwise, that use Froot Loops with a UI. From the beginning, the cereal has always been sold as Froot Loops with double O's in the name. The Flintstones has two T's, not one. The Flintstones is one of the most iconic animated sitcoms of all time. First airing in the 1960s, the show introduced viewers to a prehistoric family living in a modern Stone Age world, complete with dinosaurs, foot-powered cars, and stone-built televisions. Fred, Wilma, Barney, and Betty became household names, and the show's influence still echoes in pop culture today. But one part of the title often goes unnoticed, or more accurately, misremembered. Many people recall the show being spelled Flintstones, with a single T. That's how they say it. That's how they believe they saw it written on the title card, on merchandise, or in TV listings. But the correct spelling has always been Flintstones, with two T's, F-L-I-N-T-S-T-O-N-E-S. The extra T is there because the name is a play on the word flint, the type of stone used to make tools and start fires, fitting for a family living in the Stone Age. The pun combines Flint and Stones into one name, Flintstones. This is reflected in every episode title screen, product packaging, and promotional poster dating back to the original run of the show. Despite this, the version without the extra T seems to exist in many people's memory. The misremembered version is so common that it appears frequently in online discussions, and people often express surprise when they realize the official spelling includes the second T. Some say they've watched the show for years and never noticed, but across all official sources, from original episodes to cereal boxes and vitamin packaging, the correct spelling has always included both T's. Skechers has no T in the name. Skechers is a well-known footwear brand recognized for its casual sneakers, memory foam soles, and widespread availability in malls and department stores. With endorsements from celebrities and athletes, the brand has become a familiar name in the global shoe market. But many people are surprised when they take a closer look at how it's spelled. A significant number of people recall the brand name as Skechers, with a T, S-K-E-T-C-H-E-R-S. That spelling seems intuitive. The word sketch is familiar, and Skechers sounds like a logical brand name, especially in the context of shoes that might evoke movement or design. But the official spelling, the one that has appeared on every shoebox, storefront, and advertisement, is Skechers without a T, S-K-E-C-H-E-R-S. The brand was founded in 1992, and from the beginning, it has used the spelling without a T. The name is stylized in a distinctive font and logo, often featuring a bold S and shadowed lettering, but the letters themselves have never included the T. Despite this, the incorrect version with the T remains widespread in people's memories. Some say they remember buying a pair of Skechers and seeing it spelled that way on the box. Others insist they wrote it that way for years and only noticed the difference when the logo didn't match their expectations. It's a small letter, but for many, its absence is enough to create a moment of confusion. There are no known rebrands, logo changes, or discontinued spellings that ever include a T. Even early marketing materials and product catalogs from the 1990s confirm the consistent spelling as Skechers. Though it may feel off to those who recall it differently, the brand name has never included the extra letter. Oscar Mayer is spelled with an A, not an E. Oscar Mayer is a well-known American brand, famous for its hot dogs, cold cuts, and the jingle that many grew up singing. My Bologna has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R. The brand has existed for over a century and has become a recognizable part of grocery aisles and advertising history. But many people are surprised when they look closely at the second word in the name. A large number remember it being spelled Oscar Mayer with an E-M-E-Y-E-R. That version seems natural, especially since Mayer is a more common spelling for a last name in English-speaking countries. Some say they grew up seeing it spelled that way. Others remember singing the jingle and hearing it as Mayer, assuming the spelling matched the pronunciation. But the official spelling, shown on every package, commercial, and logo, is Oscar Mayer with an A, M-A-Y-E-R. The brand was founded in the late 1800s by a German-American family, and the name Mayer comes from the founder, Oscar Ferdinand Mayer. Since the beginning, the name has been spelled this way in all marketing and branding materials. From the earliest meat packages to the iconic Wienermobile, the Mayer name has remained consistent. Despite this, many people claim to remember the alternate spelling. Some say they never questioned it until they saw the name spelled with an A and felt something was off. Even people who recall the jingle word for word often express surprise that the letter in the song corresponds to Mayer instead of Meyer. No packaging, advertisements, or historical records from the company show the Meyer version. The name has always been spelled with an A, even if it sounds like an E when spoken aloud. Sex in the City. Not Sex in the City. Sex in the City is a widely known television series that aired from 1998 to 2004, followed by multiple movies and a recent reboot. The show follows 4 women navigating love, friendship, and careers in New York City. Over time, it became a pop culture staple, referenced in fashion, lifestyle media, and countless conversations about relationships. But for many people, the name of the show isn't what they remember it being. A large number recall the title as Sex in the City, with the word in instead of and. They say it made sense. The series was about sex and dating in the city. It rolled off the tongue more naturally, and even in conversation, people often refer to it that way without realizing. but the official title has always been Sex and the City, with the word "and". This title appears consistently across all official materials: opening credits, promotional posters, DVD cases, magazine features, and digital listings. There is no known release, whether domestic or international, where the series has ever been titled Sex in the City. Despite that, the misremembered version is common. Some people say they remember seeing it spelled Sex in the City on early advertisements. Others claim they referred to it that way for years without anyone correcting them. Even fans of the show have been caught off guard when they realize the title they've been using isn't the one that actually exists. Some of the confusion may come from the way the phrase is spoken aloud. Sex in the City can sound very similar to Sex in the City, especially when said quickly or with certain accents. Over time, the incorrect version may have become more familiar in speech, even if it never appeared in writing. Still, according to all official sources, the correct title of the show is Sex and the City, not Sex in the City. Darth Vader's helmet never had red lenses. Darth Vader is one of the most iconic villains in film history. His black armor, cape, mechanical breathing, and distinctive helmet have made him instantly recognizable across generations. For many fans of Star Wars, his look is just as memorable as his voice or storyline. But there's a detail about his helmet that many people remember differently. Specifically, the color of the lenses in his mask. Some fans recall red lenses in the eyepieces of Darth Vader's helmet. They say they noticed the red tint during certain scenes, especially in the original trilogy. Others remember merchandise, action figures, or Halloween costumes showing a reddish glare in the eyes, giving him a slightly more intimidating appearance. However, according to official Star Wars materials, Darth Vader's helmet has never consistently featured red lenses. In the original Star Wars, A New Hope, 1977, the first version of Vader's costume did include lightly tinted brownish red lenses. This was due to limitations in the helmet's construction and lightings during filming. In some scenes, especially when light hits the mask at a certain angle, a reddish hue can be faintly seen, but this was never a prominent or intended feature, and most viewers didn't notice it at the time. By the time The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, and Return of the Jedi, 1983 were released, the lenses had been updated to a darker, almost black shade, and the red tint was no longer visible. Despite this, many people believe Darth Vader's red eyes were a consistent part of his look. They may associate the red lenses with promotional material, comic book illustrations, or fan art that exaggerated the effect. Others believe they saw it clearly in the films, even though it's not widely present in most scenes. Still, in official canon and film costume archives, Vader's helmet is described as having black or dark gray lenses. Coca-Cola's logo has a hidden curly hyphen. Coca-Cola is one of the most recognized brands in the world. Its red and white script logo has been virtually unchanged for over a century, appearing on bottles, cans, billboards, and merchandise across every continent. But when asked to visualize the logo, many people overlook one specific detail: the hyphen. A large number of people do not recall the Coca-Cola logo including a curly hyphen between the two words. Some remember it being written simply as Coca-Cola, two words side by side with a natural space between them. Others say they've seen it countless times and never noticed anything separating the two words. In reality, the official Coca-Cola logo has always included a distinct looping hyphen between Coca and Cola. This curly hyphen is stylized to match the flowing Spencerian script used in the logo. It's not a standard dash or punctuation mark. It looks more like a gentle wave or a ribbon, blending seamlessly with the cursive design. Because of this, it can be easily missed, especially when viewed quickly or from a distance. The eye tends to focus on the iconic lettering and bright red background, and the hyphen can fade into the design. Despite being present since the brand's earliest days in the late 19th century, many people say they don't remember it being there. Some claim they only noticed it after looking closely at a bottle or old signage. Others still insist they've seen the logo without it, though no official version exists that omits the hyphen entirely. Historical advertisements, vintage packaging, and even early hand-painted signs all show the same thing: the curly hyphen connecting Coca and Cola. It's part of the logo's original design and remains a fixed element today. Cheez-It, not Cheez-Its. Cheez-It is a popular baked snack cracker, instantly recognizable by its bright red box and square, orange, cheese-flavored crackers. It's been a staple in supermarkets and lunchboxes for years, often shared in handfuls or eaten straight from the box. But there's a common misconception about the name, one that many people never notice until they take a closer look. A large number of people remember the product being called Cheez-Its with an S at the end. They say it makes sense. You eat more than one at a time, so the name should be plural. Some even say they clearly recall the box saying Cheez-Its and feel surprised when they realize it doesn't. But the official name of the product is, and always has been, Cheez-It, without an S. On every package, logo, and advertisement, the singular Cheez-It is used as the brand name. Even on the larger boxes that contain multiple smaller bags or family-sized portions, the product is still labeled as Cheez-It. When new flavors are released, such as Cheez-It White Cheddar or Cheez-It Extra Toasty, the base name remains singular across all varieties. There is no version of the packaging that uses the plural form. Still, the plural form is so commonly used in everyday speech that it feels natural. People refer to eating Cheez-Its, buying Cheez-Its, or bringing a bag of Cheez-Its to work or school. This casual usage likely contributed to the widespread belief that the product's name is plural. Life is like a box of chocolates isn't the real line. Forrest Gump is one of the most quoted films of the 1990s. Released in 1994, it follows the life of a kind-hearted man who finds himself at the center of many historical moments. One of the film's most memorable lines comes early in the movie, as Forrest sits on a bench holding a box of chocolates. Most people can quote the line from memory, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get." But that exact phrase, as commonly repeated, is not what's actually said in the movie. The real line, delivered by Tom Hanks in character, is, "My mama always said, life was like a box of chocolates." It's a subtle difference, just a shift in verb tense from is to was. But for many, it stands out. People remember it being in the present tense. They remember Forrest saying, "Life is like a box of chocolates," not was. This small change creates a surprising moment for viewers when they go back and listen carefully. The misquote is one of the most widespread in film history. It has appeared in pop culture parodies, memes, merchandise, and even motivational posters using the is version. Some viewers say the was sounds less familiar or emotionally distant, while is feels more natural in everyday conversation. Despite that, every official version of the film, from theatrical release to DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming, contains the original line with was. The screenplay and closed captions confirm the same wording. It has never been altered. This is another example where the remembered version is more polished or quotable than the actual dialogue. It's likely that the misquote stuck because it flows more smoothly, or because it's easier to remember and repeat. New Zealand is southeast of Australia, not northeast. New Zealand is a country known for its dramatic landscapes, rich Maori culture, and association with the Lord of the Rings films. It sits in the South Pacific Ocean, with its closest major neighbor being Australia. For most people, this seems straightforward, but a surprisingly large number of people recall New Zealand being in a different location on the map, not southeast of Australia, but to the northeast. Some say they remember seeing it placed above or to the upper right of Australia in school atlases or classroom globes. Others say they always thought it was closer to Papua New Guinea, or even partially tucked under the eastern tip of Indonesia. In their memory, New Zealand sat higher, not far off the coast like it does now. In reality, New Zealand is located southeast of Australia, about 2,000 kilometers across the Tasman Sea. Its position has remained consistent on modern digital maps, vintage atlases, and satellite imagery going back decades. There is no record of New Zealand ever being positioned northeast of Australia in any officially recognized cartographic system. Despite this, the alternate placement persists in collective memory. Some say they were surprised when they looked at the map again as adults and saw New Zealand moved. Others thought it was a map design variation or simply an error in older educational materials. There are even references to older puzzle maps, promotional posters, or classroom decor where the layout of countries may have been stylized or simplified, possibly contributing to the confusion. However, these examples are not consistent or verifiable. New Zealand's position on modern and historical maps is always southeast of Australia, not northeast. The perception of it being in a different spot is one of the more common geography-based Mandela effects. Sri Lanka is now farther southeast than many remember. Sri Lanka is an island nation located off the southern tip of India, known for its beaches, tea plantations, and ancient temples. It has long been considered a close neighbor to the Indian subcontinent, both geographically and culturally. But for many people, Sri Lanka's position on the world map seems unfamiliar. A significant number of individuals remember Sri Lanka being directly south of India, almost like a pendant hanging beneath the mainland. In their memory, the island was centered below the southern coast, nearly touching India. It felt close, just across a narrow body of water. But when looking at a map today, Sri Lanka appears slightly southeast of India. Instead of sitting directly below, it is now offset, shifted to the right. The separation between the two landmasses also appears slightly greater than some remember. Geographically, this placement is accurate. Sri Lanka lies southeast of India, separated by the Gulf of Mannar and the Palk Strait. The distance between the two countries at their closest point is approximately 30 kilometers. The island's position has remained consistent in official atlases, satellite imagery, and navigational systems. Still, many express surprise when revisiting maps. Some say they distinctly remember tracing the shape of India in school and drawing Sri Lanka directly underneath. Others recall seeing world maps where the island was more aligned with India's vertical axis. The apparent shift is subtle, but enough to create a sense of disorientation. No known map revisions or tectonic activity explain the change. It's possible that early educational materials or stylized globe designs contribute to a simplified memory of its location. Some world maps, particularly in older classrooms, distorted geography for layout purposes. Nevertheless, Sri Lanka's position on modern and historical maps is southeast of India, slightly angled and clearly separate from the subcontinent. There is no official record of it ever being directly below India. The heart is now in the center of the chest, not the left. From early childhood, many people are taught that the human heart is located on the left side of the chest. It's a common belief reinforced by imagery in cartoons, school lessons, and even where people instinctively place their hand during pledges or emotional moments over the left side of the chest. But anatomically, the human heart is not located entirely on the left. In current medical understanding and anatomical diagrams, the heart is positioned in the center of the chest, slightly tilted, with its largest portion extending toward the left, but not fully on the side. It sits behind the sternum, nestled between the lungs, with its apex, the bottom point, pointing to the left side of the body. However, a significant portion of the heart, including its base and major arteries, rests closer to the center than many people realize. This central placement is consistently shown in medical illustrations, biology textbooks, and verified through imaging technology like X-rays and MRIs. The location is not new and has been documented in medical literature for decades. Despite that, many people continue to express surprise when they learn this. They remember being taught that the heart was firmly on the left, not just leaning to the left, but entirely there. Some even recall illustrations in school textbooks showing it clearly placed on the left side of the chest cavity. Others are confused by the apparent contradiction between their memory and what modern anatomy confirms. There are no recent changes in human anatomy, and the heart's placement has not shifted. However, simplified teaching materials, symbolic depictions in media, and repeated cultural reference may have contributed to the widespread belief that the heart is located strictly on the left. In reality, the human heart is centered in the chest, with a slight orientation to the left, not fully on the left side. The human stomach is higher than many people remember. When most people think about the location of the stomach in the human body, they imagine it somewhere in the lower abdomen, just below the belly buttons, perhaps slightly to one side. That's how many remember being taught in school, and it's often how the sensation of having a stomachache is described or portrayed in media. But anatomically, the human stomach is positioned much higher than many people expect. According to modern medical diagrams and internal imaging, the stomach is located in the upper left quadrant of the abdomen, just beneath the rib cage. It sits under the diaphragm and to the left of the liver, behind the lower portion of the rib bones. In fact, much of the stomach is tucked under the ribs, close to the center of the chest, not far from the heart and lungs. This positioning has been consistent across medical literature, anatomical models, and diagnostic imaging for many decades. It is not the result of any recent discovery or revision. In standard anatomy, the area below the belly button, where many people picture the stomach, is actually occupied by a portion of the intestines, the bladder, and other organs, but not the stomach itself. Still, this surprised a lot of people. Some say they clearly remember being told the stomach was lower, or remember feeling stomach-related discomfort closer to their navel. Others are confused when comparing their own mental map of the body with modern anatomical charts. The idea that the stomach is located beneath the ribs and high in the torso feels unfamiliar. Level 25. Japan's location seems more east than it used to be. Japan is an island nation in East Asia, made up of thousands of islands, the four largest being Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Shikoku. It's located in the Pacific Ocean, off the eastern coast of the Asian continent, and is known for its mountainous terrain, high population density, and cultural influence worldwide. However, a growing number of people have noticed something peculiar when looking at world maps. Japan appears farther east than they remember. Many recall Japan being more directly aligned with the eastern edge of China and the Korean peninsula, just off the coast, slightly to the northeast. In their memory, it was relatively close to mainland Asia, forming a compact visual grouping with Korea and eastern Russia. But when looking at modern maps, Japan appears to sit much farther out into the Pacific than expected. The country is still near the Asian coast, but its current placement feels more distant, as if it's been nudged further east, creating more space between it and the continent. This perception has sparked confusion. Some say they remember Japan being tightly situated near the Sea of Japan, with less water separating it from China and Korea. Others recall tracing the coastline in geography class and seeing Japan almost parallel to mainland Asia, not curved so far eastward into the Pacific. Despite these recollections, Japan's location has not changed in official records. Satellite imagery, historical atlases, and modern navigation systems all confirm its current position. Japan is situated to the east of the Korean peninsula and Russia's easternmost islands, across the Sea of Japan. Its eastern shift may appear more dramatic on certain map projections, particularly those that distort ocean size for layout purposes. The North Pole was never a landmass. When imagining the North Pole, many people picture a frozen landmass, a large sheet of white terrain at the top of the world. It's often depicted in children's books, holiday movies, or school poster as a snowy expanse with mountains of ice, frozen ground, and maybe even a workshop for Santa Claus. But in reality, the North Pole is not a landmass at all. The North Pole is located in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, surrounded by sea ice that floats on water. There is no solid land beneath it. Unlike the South Pole, which sits atop the continent of Antarctica, the North Pole is essentially a shifting layer of ice covering deep ocean. This fact often surprises people. Many say they remember learning that there was land at the North Pole, or at least being shown globes or illustrations where it looked like solid terrain. Others recall seeing it represented as a large white cap similar to Antarctica, assuming both poles had similar geography. But scientific data and historical records have always confirmed that the North Pole consists of floating ice. The thickness and coverage of this sea ice changes with the seasons and over time, but it has never been situated on land. Submarines have traveled underneath it, and temporary research stations have been built on the ice, but there is no permanent structure or rock below the surface. Some confusion may come from common depictions in media or simplified educational diagrams. Many older maps also used heavy white coloring at the poles, to indicate ice, which could be misinterpreted as land. But despite the way it's sometimes imagined, there is no continent at the top of the Earth. The South Pole has land. The North Pole does not. The North Pole has always been a floating ice sheet over ocean, not a frozen landmass. Still, for those who remember it differently, the difference is enough to cause momentary disorientation. The Great Wall of China is not visible from space with the naked eye. For many years, a popular fact circulated through classrooms, trivia games, and documentaries that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from space with the naked eye. It's a claim repeated so often that many people accepted it without question. Some even remember learning it as early as elementary school. But according to astronauts and space agencies, this statement is not accurate. The Great Wall of China is not visible from space with the unaided human eye, at least not from low Earth orbit or beyond. While it is a long and impressive structure, the wall is relatively narrow and constructed from materials that blend in with the natural landscape. From space, especially when viewed from several hundred kilometers above Earth, it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to spot without the help of zoom lenses or ideal lighting and atmospheric conditions. NASA astronauts have publicly addressed the myth. In fact, one of the first Chinese astronauts, Yang Liwei, confirmed after his spaceflight in 2003 that he could not see the wall. Others have said that while some man-made features like cities at night, roads, or airports can sometimes be identified due to contrast or artificial lighting, the Great Wall is simply too subtle and camouflaged to stand out. Despite this, many people still believe it's clearly visible. Some recall school textbooks stating it as fact. Others remember hearing it in documentaries or science shows. The idea stuck, likely because the wall is one of the longest structures ever built and winds across the landscape for thousands of kilometers. But in practice, visibility from space depends on contrast, lighting, weather, and a structure's size relative to its surroundings. And the Great Wall, though massive from the ground, does not meet those conditions consistently. The truth is, the Great Wall of China cannot be reliably seen from space with the naked eye, despite what many were once taught. The Statue of Liberty has moved, according to some memories. The Statue of Liberty is one of the most recognizable landmarks in the world. A gift from France to the United States in 1886, the statue stands as a symbol of freedom and democracy, holding a torch high above New York Harbor. Most people assume, and many confidently say, that the statue stands on Ellis Island. Some even remember visiting Ellis Island and seeing the statue up close, or learning in school that Ellis Island was its home. But in reality, the Statue of Liberty is located on Liberty Island, not Ellis Island. The two islands are close to each other in New York Harbor, but they are not the same. Liberty Island is home to the statue itself, while Ellis Island is historically known as the entry point for millions of immigrants arriving in the United States in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The confusion likely stems from the fact that both islands are often mentioned together in discussions about immigration and American symbolism. Still, many people claim they distinctly remember the statue being on Ellis Island. Some say they were taught that in school. Others recall visiting New York and being surprised to learn it was on Liberty Island instead. The belief is so common that it shows up frequently in discussion about the Mandela Effect, with people describing vivid memories of signage, maps, or tour guide identifying Ellis Island as the statue's location. There are no records of the Statue of Liberty ever being located on Ellis Island. The two islands are often visited on the same ferry route, which may contribute to the confusion. Tourists commonly stop at both locations during the same trip. Despite this mix-up in memory, the fact remains the same. The Statue of Liberty stands on Liberty Island and has never been located on Ellis Island. The number of U.S. states misremembered as 51 or 52. In school, students across the United States are taught that the country is made up of 50 states. This number is widely known and well documented. It appears on flags, in textbooks, and on official government materials. The 50th state, Hawaii, was admitted to the Union in 1959. Yet, a surprising number of people recall learning that there were 51 or even 52 states. Some say they were taught there were 52 states as early as elementary school. Others recall hearing it on television, in quizzes, or as part of general knowledge. There are even people who insist they were corrected at some point in life, believing 52 to be right until someone told them otherwise. This seemingly small error has become one of the more frequently cited Mandela effects related to education and national identity. One possible explanation is confusion between states and U.S. territories. The United States has several territories, such as Puerto Rico and Guam, which are part of the country, but not officially states. Puerto Rico in particular is often discussed in political contexts as a potential 51st state, which may contribute to the misunderstanding. Another theory is that people might conflate the number with a deck of playing cards, 52 cards, or recall seeing unofficial designs of the US flag that featured more stars than 50, some of which were artistic interpretations or speculative versions. Despite these possibilities, there is no historical record of the US ever having more than 50 states. Every version of the official US flag since Hawaii's admission has featured 50 stars, and no additional states have been added since then. The Mona Lisa's smile looks different than it used to. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa is one of the most famous and analyzed paintings in the world. Housed in the Louvre Museum in Paris, the portrait has fascinated viewers for centuries, especially because of the expression on her face. But for many people, something about that expression seems different. A significant number of people remember the Mona Lisa's smile as being almost non-existent, a very subtle, barely there expression with a calm, neutral look. In some cases, people recall it being almost serious. They remember staring at her face and trying to decide if she was smiling at all. The mysterious look was often described as blank or unreadable, but when people look at the painting now, they often notice something they don't remember before. Her smile appears more obvious. It's still subtle, but many say it seems fuller, more curved, and more defined than they recall. For some, this gives the portrait a warmer, friendlier appearance than what they once remembered, and the change, even if minor, feels unsettling. There's no evidence that the painting itself has changed. High-resolution photographs, historical prints, and restorations of the Mona Lisa confirm that her smile has always been ambiguous, not exaggerated, but not entirely absent either. Art historians have long noted how Da Vinci used delicate shading around her mouth to create a shifting expression that changes slightly depending on where and how the viewer looks. Still, many people insist that her smile looks different now, not because of changes to the painting, but because it simply doesn't match what they remember seeing years ago. Some say they were taught that the entire mystery of the Mona Lisa was that she didn't smile at all. Whether it's due to lighting, digital reproductions, or memory, the effect is noticeable for those who experience it. The Mona Lisa's expression has not changed physically, but to many, her smile now seems more present than it used to be. The Thinker statue's pose isn't what many remember. The Thinker by Auguste Rodin is one of the most iconic sculptures in the world. Cast in bronze, the statue depicts a seated man in deep contemplation, his muscular body hunched forward in a moment of silent reflection. It has become a universal symbol of philosophy, thought, and introspection. But many people remember the Thinker in a different pose than the one shown today. A large number of individuals recall the statue with its fist pressed against the forehead, as if the man is deep in thought, resting his head in his hand. Some remember imitating the pose in school or during games, even placing their hand to their forehead when referencing thinking, like the statue. The image of the statue with a closed fist on the temple is deeply ingrained in many people's minds. But the actual pose is slightly different. In every original version of the Thinker, the statue rests with his right hand under his chin, not against his forehead. His hand is open, not clenched into a tight fist, and his knuckles rest beneath the jawline while his left arm crosses his lap. The expression remains contemplative, but the hand position is distinctly lower than many remember. Multiple official casts of the Thinker exist around the world, and they are all consistent in this design. Museums, historical archives, and Rodin's original plaster model all confirm that the hand has always rested beneath the chin, never on the forehead. Despite this, the alternate memory continues to persist. Some people are surprised when they see the sculpture again after years, saying it doesn't look the way they recall. Others remember reenacting the pose in a different way entirely, leading to a moment of confusion when they compare the memory to the original artwork. There is no record of the thinker ever having a different pose. The location of the kidneys is higher than many people remember. For most people, the kidneys are associated with the lower back, often thought of as being located near the waistline or just above the hips. When someone mentions kidney pain, it's common to see a hand placed over the lower sides of the torso, just above the pelvis. That's how many were taught in school, and how the body is commonly represented in cartoons and simplified diagrams. But in reality, the kidneys are positioned much higher in the body than many people expect. According to standard human anatomy, the kidneys sit in the upper back region of the abdomen, tucked beneath the rib cage on both sides of the spine. The top portion of each kidney reaches as high as the lower edge of the chest cavity. In fact, the ribs partially protect the kidneys, especially the right one, which sits slightly lower than the left due to the position of the liver. This placement is confirmed in medical textbooks, anatomical charts, and imaging scans like MRIs and CT scans. Doctors examining kidney issues often place stethoscopes or apply pressure higher on the back than what most people would guess. Despite this, many people are surprised to learn how high the kidneys actually sit. Some say they distinctly remember being taught that the kidneys were located down near the belt line. Others mention associating kidney punches in boxing or martial arts with hits to the lower back, not the rib area. This discrepancy may stem from simplified educational materials, outdated visuals, or cultural representation that place the kidneys lower than they actually are. In many illustrations meant for general audiences, internal organs are arranged more for clarity than for anatomical accuracy. Regardless of how it's remembered, medical anatomy has always shown that the kidneys are located in the upper rear abdomen, protected in part by the lower ribs. They are not located near the hips, as many people believe. "Hello, Clarice" was never said in The Silence of the Lambs. The Silence of the Lambs is one of the most iconic psychological thrillers in film history. Released in 1991, it introduced audience to the chilling relationship between FBI trainee Clarice Starling and incarcerated serial killer Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins. Over time, one line from the film has become deeply embedded in pop culture. "Hello, Clarice." The phrase is often quoted in a deep, eerie voice used to parody the Lecter character in sketches, cartoons, and Halloween costumes. Many people remember this as his signature greeting, the first thing he says to Clarice when she approaches his cell. But that line is never actually spoken in the film. In their first meeting, Dr. Lecter greets Clarice with a polite and formal "Good morning." He never says "Hello, Clarice" in that scene, or at any point in the movie. Despite this, the quote has become one of the most frequently misattributed lines in modern cinema. It has appeared in TV shows, comedy routines, and even marketing campaigns, reinforcing the memory for those who believed they'd heard it in the original film. The likely explanation is that the line "Hello, Clarice" became popularized through impressions and parodies. It sounds like something Lecter would say, and it fits the character's quiet menace. Over time, the line took on a life of its own, becoming more memorable than the actual dialogue from the movie. Even people who have seen The Silence of the Lambs multiple times are often surprised to find out that the line doesn't appear. Some insist they remember hearing it. Others recall repeating it for years, only to rewatch the film and realize it's not there. Official transcripts, scripts, and the film itself confirm the truth. Dr. Hannibal Lecter never says "Hello, Clarice" in The Silence of the Lambs. "We Are the Champions" doesn't end the way many remember. Queen's "We Are the Champions" is one of the most well-known anthems in rock history. Released in 1977, it's been played at sporting events, celebrations, and farewell moments for decades. The song builds with dramatic flair, leading to what many people believe is a triumphant and familiar ending. Thousands, maybe millions, remember the song closing with the words "Of the World," sung powerfully by Freddie Mercury, followed by a final musical flourish. But when listening to the studio version of the song today, that ending is missing. The official recorded track fades out with the line "We are the champions," and stops there. There's no concluding of the world in the final chorus. The line does appear earlier in the song, but not at the very end, as many listeners expect. For those who have sung along for years, the ending feels incomplete, even abrupt. This discovery surprised many fans. Some say they clearly remember the Of the World finale, especially during emotional or celebratory moments. Others claim they've mimicked that part during karaoke or heard it played that way on the radio. There are a few possible reasons for the discrepancy. In live performances, Queen often did end the song with Of the World, adding it for dramatic effect. Some of those performances were televised, recorded, or replayed at sporting events, possibly cementing that version in people's memory. But when you go back and listen to the original album version, as released on News of the World, it ends with "We are the champions," and then fades out. Freddie Mercury's famous final line, as many remember it, doesn't actually exist on the studio recording. C-3PO has a silver leg in Star Wars, not fully gold. C-3PO is one of the most recognizable characters in the Star Wars franchise. As a humanoid protocol droid fluent in over 6 million forms of communication, his shiny, golden exterior became an iconic visual element in the original trilogy. But many fans who grew up watching the films are surprised to learn that C-3PO isn't entirely gold in the original Star Wars movie, A New Hope, 1977. From the knee down, his right leg is silver. This detail is visible in multiple scenes, particularly in well-lit settings. The color contrast isn't always obvious due to lighting, reflections, and the quality of older film transfers, which may have blended the metallic tones together. However, high-resolution version of the film and behind-the-scenes photos clearly show that C-3PO has one silver lower leg from the knee to the foot, while the rest of his body is gold. Many fans remember him being completely gold throughout the original trilogy. They say they never noticed the silver leg, even after watching the movies dozens of times. Some who own action figures or costumes also recall those versions being fully gold, which may have reinforced the idea. Actor Anthony Daniels, who portrayed C-3PO, confirmed in interviews that the character had a silver leg in A New Hope, and that even he didn't notice how visible it was on screen until years later. The costume detail was intentional, meant to show that C-3PO had been repaired over time, a subtle nod to the universe's lived-in, patchwork aesthetic. In later films, like The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, C-3PO was updated to appear fully gold, which may have contributed to the confusion about his earlier appearance. Despite the widespread belief that he was gold from head to toe, C-3PO's right lower leg was silver in the original 1977 film. It's a small detail, but one that many missed. Interview with the Vampire, not Interview with a Vampire. Interview with the Vampire is a 1994 gothic horror film based on Anne Rice's 1976 novel of the same name. Starring Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, it became a classic in vampire cinema and introduced many viewers to the author's larger universe of supernatural characters. But when people refer to the movie or the book, a large number consistently call it Interview with a Vampire. The title sounds natural. It's what people expect. An interview with a vampire. Any vampire. Many recall seeing it written that way on posters, video cases, or theater listings. Some say they even remember reading the book under the title or hearing it introduced that way in media coverage. But the official title, in both the film and the book, is Interview with the Vampire. It's a small change, just a shift in the article from A to the, but to many, it feels significant. The use of the makes it more specific, implying a singular, perhaps legendary vampire rather than just any member of the undead. It's a deliberate stylistic choice by the author, and it appears that way on every official release, the book, the movie, and the marketing materials. Despite this, the alternate memory of a vampire persists. Some fans claim their VHS or DVD copies had the A version, though photographs of those copies consistently show the correct The title. Others say the misquote is so common that it eventually replaced the real version in their mind. It's also worth noting that many newspaper articles, websites, and early internet reference occasionally misstated the title as a vampire, which may have helped reinforce the incorrect version. But according to every verified source, including the publisher, the film studio, and the original author. The correct title has always been Interview with the Vampire. Smokey Bear, not Smokey the Bear. For decades, the image of a friendly bear in a ranger's hat, blue jeans, and holding a shovel has been used in wildfire prevention campaigns across the United States. Most people recognize the slogan, "Only you can prevent forest fires." But when it comes to the bear's name, many people recall it as Smokey the Bear, including in songs, books, and school materials. The phrase Smokey the Bear sounds familiar, rhythmic, and conversational. It even shows up in children's media and public service announcements. However, the character's official name has always been Smokey Bear. The U.S. Forest Service introduced Smokey Bear in 1944 as part of a campaign to raise awareness about human-caused wildfires. From the beginning, the character was named simply Smokey Bear, and all official materials, posters, signs, and educational handouts used that exact name. So where did Smokey the Bear come from? In 1952, a popular song titled Smokey the Bear was released, and it gained widespread popularity. The songwriters reportedly added the word "the" to maintain rhythm and fit the melody. As the song spread through radio, schools, and pop culture, the altered version of the name became commonly accepted, even though it wasn't accurate. Over time, both versions of the name began to circulate, and many people grew up believing Smokey the Bear was the correct version. In reality, the original and official name remained unchanged by the Forest Service. Even today, campaigns and official websites use Smokey Bear. His image continues to appear on national forest signage and wildfire prevention material under that name. The widespread use of Smokey the Bear in songs and informal speech may have blurred the lines, but according to all official sources, the correct name is, and always has been, Smokey Bear. Tinker Bell never drew the Disney logo with her wand. When people think of classic Disney openings, many imagine a sparkling introduction where Tinker Bell flies across the screen, waves her wand, and draws the iconic Disney logo, sometimes with a trail of pixie dust forming a castle or the arc above it. Some even remember her tapping the wand at the end, accidentally getting stuck, or dotting the I in Disney with a twinkle of light. But according to Disney archives and official logo animations, Tinker Bell has never drawn the Disney logo with her wand in any standard film opening. There are indeed early Disney intros where Tinker Bell appears, such as in marketing clips, DVD menus, or the introduction to Disney's sing-along songs, but the version where she flies across the screen and physically draws the logo is not part of any official theatrical Disney logo sequence. Still, many people remember it vividly. Some recall seeing it before Disney VHS tapes. Others say they watched it at the beginning of animated films in the 90s or early 2000s. The memory is often tied to childhood, of sitting down to watch a Disney movie and seeing Tinker Bell appear, wave her wand, and create the Disney logo in mid-air. While some promotional clips or specials may have used a similar animation for effect, there is no confirmed Disney theatrical logo where Tinker Bell officially flies in and draws the entire logo. The standard Disney intro, especially the modern one, features a castle, fireworks, and a sweeping arc of light, but no fairy. The widespread belief may come from the mixing of various Disney materials, commercials, bumper on the Disney Channel, or other promotional content that blurred the lines between official openings and added animations. Regardless, the iconic fairy was never part of the official logo sequence in the way many remember. The Volkswagen logo has a gap, not a joined V and W. The Volkswagen logo is one of the most recognizable emblems in the automotive world. It consists of a clean, circular design featuring the letters V stacked on top of W, representing the German automaker's name, Volks, people, and Wagen, car. But many people remember the logo looking different than it does today. Specifically, a large number of individuals recall the V and W being connected, forming a single continuous shape with no visible space in between. In their memory, the letters were fused together, bold, solid, and seamless. This version is often described as being cleaner and more modern looking. However, in the official Volkswagen logo, The V and W have always been separated by a small horizontal gap. The two letters sit neatly within the circle, but they are clearly distinct, with a thin line running between them. This feature appears in every official version of the logo, including vintage designs, modern rebrands, and even in the original post-war emblems. People who discover the gap for the first time often express surprise. Some say they own Volkswagen vehicles and never noticed the space. Others claim they used to draw the logo differently, with the letters joined, and are confused when they now see a break between them. The Mandela effect here stems from that small detail, the subtle gap that many believe was never there before. It's not a drastic change, but enough to feel strange when compared to a long-held memory. Even official merchandise and wheel center caps, when viewed closely, include the separation. Volkswagen has made small stylistic updates to the logo over time, especially in terms of color, thickness, and simplification. But in every version, the core structure, including the gap between the V and W, has remained intact. The location of South America seems too far east. When looking at a map of the world, most people think they have a pretty solid sense of where the continents are, especially something as large and familiar as South America. For many, it's mentally filed as being directly south of North America, lined up neatly under the United States and Central America. But when people revisit a current map, they often experience a strange moment of surprise. Because South America is not directly beneath North America, it's shifted significantly to the east. In modern maps, the entire continent of South America is located much farther to the right than many remember. Its northern coast appears nearly aligned with the western edge of Africa, and its eastern coastline juts far into the Atlantic. Some even notice that it's no longer lined up beneath Mexico and Central America the way they recall from school. This observation has become one of the most talked about geography-based Mandela effects. People say they clearly remember the Americas being vertically aligned, with North, Central, and South America forming a relatively straight stack from top to bottom. The dramatic eastward slant of South America seems off, and for some, unexplainably so. But according to all modern and historical maps, including satellite imagery, globes, atlases, and nautical charts, South America's position has always been where it is now. It has always extended into the Atlantic, leaning eastward, with its northeast coast not far from Western Africa. So why do so many people remember it differently? Some theories suggest that school maps or early educational globes may have used distorted projections or simplified layouts that made the continents appear more directly aligned. Others think it's simply a case of faulty memory based on stylized visuals or limited exposure to global geography. Whatever the cause, the reaction is often the same: a quiet moment of disorientation when seeing South America's position again and realizing it's farther east than expected. The color Chartreuse isn't pink, it's green. Color names are often learned early in life through crayons, art class, fashion, or digital design tools. And while some colors are universally recognized, others tend to slip through the cracks, remembered more by feel than by precision. One such color is Chartreuse. A surprising number of people are convinced that Chartreuse is a shade of pink or reddish purple. Some say they remember using it in art class or reading it on color palettes in makeup or fashion and mentally associating it with soft pinks or rosy hues. Others feel sure they've seen it used to describe lipstick, flowers, or dresses in the red-pink family. But in reality, Chartreuse is a shade of green. More specifically, it's a bright, yellowish green, a bold color that sits between green and yellow on the color wheel. It's named after a French liqueur called green chartreuse, which is made by Carthusian monks and has a similarly vivid color. In modern design, chartreuse is used in highlighters, neon signage, sportswear, and safety gear, anything that needs to catch the eye with intensity. Despite this, the misremembering is widespread. People react with surprise when they look up the color and see something almost neon or lime-colored. Some insist they were taught differently, or that chartreuse was once classified as a type of pink in color sets, design software, or early web pages. There's no known point in time when chartreuse was officially classified as a pink or red hue, so where did the confusion come from? Some theorize it's simply a mix-up with similarly soft-sounding color names like cerise, fuchsia, or mauve. Others think the vividness of the name Chartreuse makes it feel like it should be part of a bolder, warmer palette, not something you'd associate with highlighters or neon lights. But according to every official source, Chartreuse is a bright yellow-green, not pink, and never has been. The Sinbad Genie movie never existed. Many people, especially those who grew up in the 1990s, have a clear memory of a genie movie starring comedian Sinbad. In their minds, it was a light-hearted family comedy where Sinbad wore a turban and baggy genie clothes, cracked jokes, and granted wishes. Some remember specific scenes: a kid finding a magical lamp, slapstick humor, or Sinbad floating in the air. Some even recall the title, Shazam. But here's the strange part. This movie doesn't exist. Sinbad, the actor and comedian, has never starred in a genie movie. No film titled Shazam featuring him as a genie has ever been released, according to every known film archive, studio record, or VHS collection. Despite this, the belief that such a movie once existed remains incredibly widespread. This false memory has become one of the most famous Mandela effects to date. Entire Reddit threads and YouTube videos have been dedicated to uncovering what happened to this movie, or why so many people remember something that apparently never happened. One possible explanation is confusion with the 1996 movie Kazam, which featured basketball star Shaquille O'Neal as a rapping genie. While Kazam does exist, it starred a different person, had a different name, and came out at a different time than what many remember. Still, people insist that Shazam was a separate movie, not a mix-up with Kazam. Adding to the mystery, Sinbad did appear in costume as a genie once, in a short promotional skit for a TV marathon of Sinbad the Sailor. Images from that event may have helped reinforce the false memory over time, especially as screenshots resurfaced online. But officially, there is no record of a movie called Shazam starring Sinbad. The Ford logo has a curl in the F, but many never noticed. The Ford Motor Company is one of the most iconic car manufacturers in the world. Its blue oval logo with the white cursive Ford text is instantly recognizable, a symbol that's been seen on cars, trucks, and billboards for over a century. But there's one detail in that logo that many people claim they've never noticed before: the curled line on the crossbar of the F. Instead of a simple horizontal line, the cross of the F in the Ford logo has a loop curl that almost looks like a stylized flourish or a small swirl, something that resembles a cursive E attached to the top. This curl has been present in the official logo since the early 1900s and appears on nearly every version of the emblem since the company's early days. Yet many people swear they don't remember it ever being there. Some say they have driven Ford vehicles for years, worn branded merchandise, or seen commercials countless times, and never once noticed the curl. Others claim they used to draw the logo from memory as a kid, and that flourish was never part of it. To them, the F was clean and straightforward, not decorative. Upon seeing the curl now, many react with confusion. It seems obvious once pointed out, but also feels strangely new. So where does the disconnect come from? It may be that the loop detail is subtle enough to go unnoticed, especially at small sizes or from a distance. And because people are generally familiar with block letter logos, the flourish might have simply been ignored or mentally smoothed out over time. And for many, it's a detail they're somehow seeing or noticing for the very first time. The number of people in the JFK car was 6, not 4. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963 remains one of the most iconic and heavily examined events of the 20th century. The black convertible limousine, the motorcade winding through Dealey Plaza, the sound of gunfire. These images have been etched into collective memory. But for many people, one detail about the moment feels strangely off. They remember 4 people in the car: President Kennedy, his wife Jacqueline, Texas Governor John Connally, and his wife Nellie. 2 in the front, 2 in the back. That's how it's often been retold. In films, school textbooks, and pop culture references. For decades, it seemed like a widely accepted detail. But when you go back and look at the footage, photographs, and official reports from that day, there's something unexpected. There weren't 4 people in the car. There were 6. The full configuration included 2 Secret Service agents in the front seat, the driver, and another agent. Then came the middle row, occupied by the Connollys, and in the back, the Kennedys. A 3-row convertible. A 6-person layout. It's there in the Zapruder film. It's there in still photographs and eyewitness reports. And yet, many people who've studied the event, or thought they remembered it clearly, are genuinely surprised to see this detail. The memory doesn't match the evidence. Not completely. Some notice the inconsistency immediately. Others insist they've seen diagrams, classroom illustrations, or documentaries that only ever show 4 passengers. It's not just a passing error, it's a deeply rooted mental image, and when confronted with the truth that 6 people were in the car, it raises a quiet question. How can a memory feel so clear and still be wrong? Depends adult diapers were always Depend. For decades, Depend has been one of the most recognized brands in adult incontinence products. Sold in pharmacies, supermarkets, and advertised on television, it's a name many people have seen, whether on shelves or in commercials. But for a surprising number of people, something about the brand name feels off. Many distinctly remember the product being called Depends, with an S at the end. It sounds natural in conversation. She wears Depends. He picked up a box of Depends at the store. The plural version fits with how other products are commonly named, especially those that come in packs. But when you look at the packaging, past or present, the brand name is simply Depend. Singular. It's not a recent rebranding. Historical packaging, early TV advertisements, and product archives all show the same name, Depend. Whether it's a box from the 1980s or a commercial from last week, the name has never officially included the S. Still, the plural version is widely used. Some say they've been calling it Depends for years, and others even remember seeing it printed that way on packaging. A few people claim they only noticed the singular name recently, and it caught them completely off guard. The discrepancy seems small, but it's enough to trigger confusion in those who are absolutely sure they remembered it the other way. There's no confirmed explanation for the mismatch. Some speculate it's just a natural tendency to pluralize items that are bought in bulk. Others believe it could be a result of how the brand was referenced in pop culture, where Depends became a kind of shorthand that spread over time. But for those who feel certain the name was different, the box they're looking at now doesn't quite match what they remember. The moon looks closer than it used to. For as long as people have looked up at the night sky, the moon has been a constant presence, round, glowing, and serene. But in recent years, some have started to notice something that feels unusual. They say the moon looks closer than they remember. It's not just about its size during a supermoon, or its brightness during a clear night. This is something deeper, a subtle but persistent feeling that the moon's position in the sky has shifted, that it appears larger, lower, or closer to Earth than it used to. Some say they remember the moon being much smaller and farther away, a soft, distant disk floating high overhead. Others recall it being less detailed to the naked eye, with craters and textures only visible through a telescope. Now, they say, they can see more of its surface than they remember ever being able to, even on an average night. Photographs taken on phones seem to capture a moon that looks huge, looming just above rooftops or city skylines. For some, it's beautiful. For others, quietly unsettling. Scientifically, the moon's distance from Earth has not significantly changed in our lifetimes. It orbits at an average of 384,400 km away, with slight variations due to its elliptical orbit. Its apparent size can change slightly depending on where it is in that orbit, but not to a degree that would explain this widespread sense of difference. So why do so many people feel like something is off? Some point to light pollution or atmospheric clarity. Others mention changes in camera technology making the moon appear larger in photos. And some simply say, it doesn't look the way it used to. Maybe the moon hasn't moved at all. Maybe our memory of it has. The sun used to be more yellow. For most people, memories of drawing the sun as a child are vivid. a bright yellow circle, often with rays beaming outward like spokes. It was one of the first things taught in school art. The sky is blue and the sun is yellow. Simple, familiar, undeniable. But today, more and more people are noticing something strange when they look up. The sun doesn't appear yellow anymore. It looks white. To the modern eye, especially when viewed during midday in a clear sky, the sun gives off a harsh, brilliant white light, not the soft yellow hue many people remember from their childhood. Some say the change is subtle, others say it's glaringly obvious. And the more they think about it, the more they're sure the sun used to be a warmer color. But scientifically, the sun has always emitted a broad spectrum of light, peaking in the white to slightly blue-white range. The yellow tone we see during sunrise or sunset is caused by the atmosphere scattering shorter blue wavelengths, leaving behind reds and yellows. At noon, however, its true color is closest to white. So why do so many people remember it differently? Some say that as children, they were taught in school that the sun is yellow, not just artistically, but factually. Others mention memories of watching nature documentaries, playing outside, or simply lying in the grass and seeing a distinctly golden orb in the sky. Now, when they look again, it feels almost clinical, cold. Cameras today often capture the sun as stark white, or even slightly bluish. The warm glow, they say, seems to belong to the past, but there's no known shift in the sun's actual color, and scientists confirm its radiation output remains stable. Still, the feeling lingers. If the sun was always white, why do so many remember it as yellow? The scream. Was it screaming or listening? The Scream, painted by Edvard Munch in 1893, is one of the most iconic images in art history. The figure, set against a swirling red-orange sky, stands on a bridge, clutching his face in apparent terror. It has come to symbolize existential fear, anxiety, and emotional overwhelm. But here's the strange part. Many people remember the painting differently. Some say they recall the figure with its mouth closed, not open. Others remember the posture suggesting silence, or even that the figure was covering its ears, reacting to the scream, not letting one out. There's a sense of disconnection, like something about the original artwork has changed, even though it hasn't. Today, when you look at the original version of the Scream, the figure's mouth is wide open, its eyes are wide, and its hands are placed firmly against the sides of its head, not over the ears, but beside them. The expression is interpreted as someone in the middle of releasing a scream, not just hearing one. But even Edvard Munch's own words add a layer of confusion. In his diary, he wrote that the inspiration for the piece came from a moment when he felt a great infinite scream passing through nature. That line, passing through, has led some to believe that the figure wasn't the one screaming, but rather reacting to the scream. This has fueled debate. Is the figure screaming or listening? Was the painting always this ambiguous, or has something about it, even its emotional tone, shifted in the way we collectively remember it? People have recreated the Scream in costume, seen it on posters, and studied it in school. And yet, their memory doesn't always match the painting that hangs in galleries today. Was it always the way it is now? Or have we remembered something slightly different? A silent figure, a different emotion, a scream that was never theirs to begin with. The opening line in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood isn't what you remember. For generations of children, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was more than a TV show. It was a sense of comfort. Each episode opened the same way. Fred Roger walking in, changing into his cardigan and sneakers, and singing the theme song that welcomed viewers like familiar friends. And most people can still recite that first line by heart. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. At least, that's how they remember it. But when you go back and listen, not just to one episode, but to all of them, the actual line is different. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. That's the original lyric. Not the, but this, and it's consistent across every official version of the show, from its 1968 debut to its final episodes decades later. Many people, even lifelong fans, are surprised to learn this. They feel confident that it was always the neighborhood, and the alternate line doesn't sound quite right. Some even find themselves going back to double-check old VHS tapes or archived broadcasts, only to discover that the line they've said for years was never said at all. So where did the misquote come from? Part of it may be rhythm. The neighborhood flows more smoothly and has a more familiar sound. It's the way we naturally talk. The idea of the neighborhood feels universal, while this feels more specific. Over time, that tiny shift in expectation may have reshaped the way people remembered the song. It also doesn't help that the 2019 film about Fred Roger was titled A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, echoing the more commonly misremembered version. That title may have further solidified the incorrect line in people's minds. But in every episode of The Real Show, the one children grew up watching, Fred Rogers quietly sang the same thing. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. Not the, but this. Barbra Streisand's name was never Barbara. Barbra Streisand is one of the most iconic entertainers of all time. A legendary singer, actress, and director whose name has appeared on billboards, record covers, and theater marquees for over half a century. But many people are surprised when they take a closer look at how her first name is spelled. It's not Barbra Streisand, it's Barbara, without the second A. This tiny detail often goes unnoticed. Most people assume her name is spelled the traditional way, like the name Barbara, which is extremely common. It's what rolls off the tongue, and it's how most people instinctively write it. But when they finally notice the missing letter, they second-guess themselves. It doesn't look right, but it's always been that way. From the very beginning of her career, her name was professionally listed as Barbra Streisand, and it's remained that way ever since. The unusual spelling wasn't a typo, it was intentional. As Streisand herself once explained in interviews, she dropped the second A on purpose when she was younger. She wanted to be different, unique, and she didn't like the idea of changing her name entirely, so she simply removed one letter and kept the rest. Even so, many fans and casual listeners insist they remember seeing it spelled the more traditional way. Others say they never noticed the change until someone pointed it out, and then it felt like the world had quietly rewritten itself behind their back. JCPenney, the extra E that was never missing. For decades, JCPenney has been one of the most recognizable department store brands in America. Its logo, printed on catalogs, shopping bags, and mall signage, is deeply familiar to millions. But for many people, the name looks wrong. They remember it as JCPenney, with just one E before the Y. That's how they pronounce it. That's how they remember seeing it spelled. And for years, they were confident it was correct. But when you look at the official name, across all branding, websites, and historical records, it's spelled JCPenney with two E's. Not just now, not in a recent rebrand, but always. This realization comes as a shock to many. Online forums are filled with people swearing they remember it without the second E. Some claim they worked at JCPenney. Others say they saw it spelled that way on storefronts growing up. Even when shown old photos or catalog scans that say JCPenney, they insist that's not how it used to look. There are no records of a previous spelling without the extra E. The memory feels too specific, too familiar, too shared. It's not just that the name looks strange now, it's that it used to look right, and suddenly it doesn't. Chick-fil-A, it's always been Chick, not Chick. For many Americans, Chick-fil-A is more than just a fast food restaurant. It's a cultural staple, known for its chicken sandwiches, customer service, and close-on-Sunday policy. The brand has a loyal following and instantly recognizable red and white signage. But for a surprisingly large number of people, the name doesn't look the way they remember. They remember Chick-fil-A, no K, just Chick, as in stylish, a clean, sleek logo that many swear by. Some say they remember the logo being elegant, almost French in aesthetic. Others recall seeing it on highway signs or drive-thru menus as chic, and only noticing the K years later, usually with a jolt of discomfort. But the company insists, and all official records show, that it's always been Chick-fil-A, with a K. Every logo, trademark filing, all commercial and corporate document confirms the spelling. Even early advertising from the 1960s uses Chick There's no known version of the brand that ever omitted the K, and yet, the alternate memory persists. Some say they grew up seeing it as Chick-fil-A. Others remember it becoming Chick only recently, as if the letters had shifted when no one was watching. People recall spelling it that way instinctively, even correcting others who added the K. The sensation is so widespread that it's become one of the most frequently cited Mandela effects tied to branding. And the weirdest part? Even after seeing the official spelling, the Chick version still looks wrong to some. They stare at it and think, that's not what it used to say. Not to them. There's no rebranding, no logo swap, no clever PR stunt. Just a subtle shift that was never supposed to happen. The Lindbergh baby wasn't found where many remember. The kidnapping of Charles Lindbergh Jr., the infant son of famed aviator Charles Lindbergh, is one of the most well-known criminal cases in American history. On March 1st, 1932, the 20-month-old child was taken from his crib in the Lindbergh home in New Jersey, sparking a national manhunt. Many who know the case, from history class, documentaries, or true crime books, remember it as a disappearance that was never fully solved, or one where the child's body was never found. Others are sure the baby was discovered hundreds of miles away, perhaps in New York, or even as far as Pennsylvania, based on early theories and the scope of the search. But here's the truth. According to police records, newspapers, and trial documents, the Lindbergh baby's body was found just 4.5 miles from the Lindbergh home, near a road, in a wooded area, severely decomposed, but confirmed to be Charles Jr. It was discovered on May 12, 1932, over 2 months after the abduction. The location was so close to the family mansion that many investigators were stunned, and yet, for some reason, this detail doesn't seem to stick. Ask around. Many people, even those who follow true crime closely, swear they remember it differently. They remember no body ever being found, or that the body was located much farther away, or that the case remained a tragic cold case with the child's fate forever unknown. But that's not what happened. A man named Bruno Richard Hauptmann was later arrested, tried, and executed for the kidnapping and murder. The crime was considered solved, and yet, the memory that the body was never found, or that it was discovered in a completely different state, is strangely widespread. The McDonald's arch used to be different. The golden arches, one of the most recognizable logos on Earth. You can spot it from a highway, an airport, a childhood memory. That big yellow M towering above the parking lot has always been there, or at least it feels like it has. But some people remember those arches looking different. Not in color, not in height, but in shape. Thousands of people, especially those who grew up in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, recall the McDonald's M as being more pointed, wider, or even two separate arches that didn't connect in the middle. Others say the arches weren't shaped like a smooth letter M at all, but more like two overlapping loops, tall, thin, almost Gothic in curve. And then there's a stranger memory. Some people don't remember an M shape at all. They recall a single arch, or two arches on opposite sides of the building, not forming a logo, but part of the restaurant's structure. This isn't entirely baseless. In the early 1960s, McDonald's restaurants actually featured two golden arches on either side of the building, standing upright, not forming a letter at all. They were structural, part of the physical restaurant. In 1962, the design shifted. The arches were stylized into the familiar M we see today. It became official in the 1968 logo. So technically, yes, the arches were once different. But here's where it gets weird. Some people don't remember the change. They remember the old logo lasting far longer, even into the 1990s. Some say the current M looks too rounded, too modern, like something that was introduced recently, not in 1968. Others are stunned when they compare old photos and see that the version they remember never existed. And for some people, the McDonald's they remember isn't the one standing there today. The Breezewood Memory Gap, America's most forgotten highway stop. If you've ever driven cross-country through the eastern United States, there's a good chance you've passed through a strange little place called Breezewood, Pennsylvania. It's a tiny town that every road tripper should remember. Because it's not just a town, it's a highway oddity. Breezewood is one of the only places in America where two major interstates, I-70 and the Pennsylvania Turnpike, are interrupted by a commercial strip of stoplights, fast food, and motels. A bizarre quirk in the highway system that forces drivers off the interstate and onto a commercial road just to continue on the same highway. It's jarring, traffic clogged, flooded with gas stations and neon signs. You can't miss it. And yet, many people do. Hundreds of frequent road trippers, truckers, and travelers who've driven that route multiple times don't remember Breezewood at all. Not just forgetting where the exit was, they don't remember ever exiting the highway. No stoplights, no detour, no Arby's, just clean interstate all the way through. They look at maps and are shocked. They've driven from Baltimore to Pittsburgh, from DC to Chicago. They should have passed through Breezewood, but have no memory of it. Some describe it like a missing frame in the film of their trip. They remember before and after, but not the town itself. Maybe it's a trick of routine. If you're not the driver, or if you drove through late at night, maybe you just didn't notice. Maybe it blended in with every other fast food stop. Or maybe it's so oddly designed that your brain skips it like a corrupted file. But Breezewood is real, loud, congested, impossible to ignore, and yet somehow, it disappears, like a place on the map that refuses to be remembered. Britney Spears' missing headset mic. If you grew up in the late 90s or early 2000s, you probably remember one iconic image from pop culture. Britney Spears, in a schoolgirl outfit, singing Baby One More Time, wearing a headset microphone. You saw it in music videos, live performances, award shows, Halloween costumes, parodies, everywhere. Or at least, you think you did. Because when people go back and watch the original Baby One More Time music video, the one that launched Britney's career in 1998, they notice something strange. There's no headset microphone. The entire video, which many people vividly remember featuring that sleek black mic curved across her cheek, has none. She sings directly to the camera with no visible microphone at all. And yet, the memory of the headset won't go away. It's one of the most widely reported Mandela effects in pop culture. People describe it in detail. The shape of the mic, the way it wrapped behind her ear, the foam cap on the end. They remember drawing it, dressing up like her for Halloween with it. Some even swear they had posters or VHS tapes that showed it clearly, but no official footage ever showed Britney wearing a headset mic in Baby One More Time. The confusion may stem from her live performances, where she often did wear one, especially during high-energy dance routines. Over time, that image may have blurred into people's memory of the original video, or maybe not, because for many, the image is too specific, too repeated, and too shared to just be a mix-up. A mic that everyone saw, but somehow was never there. The night there were two moons is the kind of thing you don't forget. People from different parts of the world, at different times, in different years, have reported looking up at the night sky and seeing something they know wasn't supposed to be there. A second moon, not an illusion caused by weather or camera lens flare. A second, glowing orb in the sky, often described as the same size, shape, and brightness as the real moon, hovering nearby, sometimes to the left or right, sometimes slightly smaller, always close enough to feel completely wrong. One of the most well-known waves of reports came in the early 2000s, when message boards and forums began collecting stories from people who said they saw two moons for just a few seconds, some while driving, others during a walk, or glancing out a window. Some say it appeared only for a moment before vanishing. Others say it drifted behind clouds and never reappeared. There's no scientific explanation for it. In some cases, the witnesses were with other people, and only one person saw it. In others, everyone present saw it. And then, no one could explain it. No news, no alerts, no confirmation, just silence. Some skeptics say it's likely a mock moon, a known optical illusion caused by ice crystals, also called a porcelain or moon halo. But the explanation falls apart in the reports where the second moon wasn't translucent or faint, it was solid, It looked real, and then it was gone. Not recorded, not explained, just gone. Hurricane Katrina, the disaster timeline that doesn't add up. Hurricane Katrina is remembered as one of the most devastating natural disasters in American history. In August 2005, the Category 5 storm ripped through the Gulf Coast, taking the life of over 1,800 people and displacing hundreds of thousands more. The images are burned into the public consciousness. People stranded on rooftops, the Superdome overflowing with the desperate and displaced, water swallowing entire neighborhoods of New Orleans. But for many people, the memory of how it unfolded doesn't align with the official timeline. They remember the levees breaking before the storm made landfall, as if the city was already drowning when the hurricane arrived. They remember people trapped in attics on the same day the hurricane hit, even though floodwaters didn't reach their peak until after the storm had moved inland. They remember the death toll being higher, the chaos more immediate, or strangely, the initial news reports being less severe than what they later saw with their own eyes. Some say they were glued to the television that week, and the sequence of events they remember doesn't match what the official record says. The storm made landfall on August 29, 2005. The levees failed shortly after, but many recall seeing images of floodwaters before the storm had fully passed. Others remember the National Guard arriving within a day, when in fact it took nearly a week for federal aid to reach many areas. The timeline is public, well documented, undisputed, and yet it doesn't fit. The memories are raw, emotional, detailed, but off by hours, days, sometimes entire phases of the disaster. For some, it's just a mental mix-up. For others, it feels like something deeper, like history itself has been reshuffled, the tape rewound and played again out of order. In a world saturated with 24-hour news, how did so many people come away with different versions of the same catastrophe? The forgotten U.S. time zone. Ask someone how many time zones are in the continental United States, and most people will say 4. Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific. That's how it's taught. That's how it's remembered. That's how it's always been, right? Except it hasn't. Because when you look at an official time zone map of the United States today, you don't see 4. You see 6. Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific, Alaska, Hawaii Aleutian. And for some that's not surprising. They know Alaska and Hawaii are outliers. But here's where the glitch begins. A growing number of people insist that even within the continental US, there were only 4 zones, and they don't remember mountain time existing. Or if they do, they say Arizona was the only part of it. Others remember the US having just 3 zones in the lower 48 for time: Central, Eastern, and Pacific. No mountain, no odd one in the middle. Some even say they never heard the term mountain time at all growing up, only learning about it much later in adulthood, when scheduling meeting online or setting digital calendars. It showed up in drop-down menus like it had always been there, but it hadn't been, at least not to them. There's no evidence that the time zone map has changed. The US officially adopted time zones in 1883, and by 1918, 4 standard time zones were in place across the contiguous United States: Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. Mountain time has always been real, but the memory of it wasn't always there. Some maps in older school books didn't label it. Some weather broadcasts never mentioned it. And for some people, it simply didn't exist. Until suddenly, it did. In emails, on software, in scheduling tools, staring back at them with quiet authority, as if it had always been part of the equation. Maybe it was just overlooked. Or maybe, like so many things in these deep layers, it wasn't there until you looked for it. The moon's face has turned. Since the beginning of recorded history, humans have looked up at the moon and seen a face, the man in the moon. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, or at least shapes and shadow that resembled them. Children were told bedtime stories about him. Cultures gave him different names, but no matter where you were in the world, when you looked up, the face was always there. Only now, some people say it's different. not gone. Turn. A growing number of observers, casual sky watchers, amateur astronomers, even people who've spent decades moon gazing, have started to report something strange. The face on the moon looks rotated, like it has shifted slightly clockwise. The features are there but off-center. The familiar eyes appear higher than they used to. The mouth now seems tilted or lower, and when they compare it to how they remembered it, or even sketched it as kids, it no longer lines up. Some describe the change as subtle but disorienting. Others say they noticed it suddenly, one night, like the moon had spun just enough to feel wrong. Of course, scientists say the moon doesn't rotate relative to Earth in any meaningful way. It's tidally locked, which means we always see the same side. It wobbles slightly over time, a phenomenon called libration, but never so much that its face would noticeably turn. Yet people all over the world are reporting that it has. They're looking at the same moon, but not the same face. And when they try to describe the difference, they struggle. It's not just the angle, it's the feeling. Like a childhood friend tilting their head and suddenly looking like a stranger. The moon is still there, still bright, still constant. But to many, something quietly shifted. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Babe Ruth died in 1948, but some remember the 1960s. Babe Ruth is one of the most legendary names in American sports. Known for redefining baseball in the 1920s and 1930s, his larger-than-life persona, both on and off the field, made him a household name across generations. But ask around, and you might find something strange. A number of people don't remember Babe Ruth dying in the 1940s. They remember it happening in the 1960s. Some say they recall hearing about his death in 1961 or 1963, as part of a decade filled with cultural shifts and high-profile passings. For them, Babe Ruth was still alive well into the post-war era, a living legend, perhaps appearing on black and white TV or in newsreels. His death felt closer to the time of JFK or Martin Luther King Jr., not something tucked away in the shadow of World War II, but according to all historical records, Babe Ruth died on August 16, 1948, at the age of 53. His funeral drew tens of thousands of mourners to Yankee Stadium. Newspapers across the country carried the headline the next day. The moment is well documented and undisputed. So why do some people remember it differently? There's no public record of confusion at the time, no retractions, no reason for the year 1960 to even be associated with his death. And yet, for some, 1948 sounds too early, as if they lived through a different version of the 1950s and 60s, one where Ruth was still alive, still mentioned in current events, maybe even still appearing occasionally in public. Some theories point to misremembering his final public appearances, which were rare, but did happen in the mid to late 1940s. Others think the sheer size of his legacy may have stretched his presence further in public memory than the facts support. Still, the inconsistency remains. Babe Ruth died in 1948, but to some, it feels like history moved his death backward, and they were never told. The Monopoly Man and Mr. Peanut, a memory without a source. In the world of classic branding, few mascots are as iconic as the Monopoly Man and Mr. Peanut. One is the face of board game capitalism, tuxedo, cane, and top hat. The other is the Planters Peanut mascot, Monocle, top hat, and gentleman's swagger. And yet, for a surprising number of people, there's a shared memory that simply doesn't add up. They remember the two characters appearing together in commercials, ads, or some kind of co-branded event. Some say it was a TV commercial, likely in the 90s or early 2000s, where the Monopoly Man and Mr. Peanut shook hands, shared a knowing nod, or even exchanged clever one-liners about money and snacks. Others recall it being a magazine ad or a crossover event, possibly Super Bowl related, a moment where two top-hatted mascots shared the same screen. But here's the strange part. There's no evidence this ever happened. Searches turn up nothing. Fan forums have speculated about it, with users swearing they saw it just once, possibly during a holiday campaign or some obscure branded content. Some believe it's simply visual conflation. Both characters wear top hats, both exude an old money personality, and both have been around for over a century. Others say this memory feels too specific to be a mix-up. They remember it clearly: a handshake, a pun about peanuts and property, two mascots, side by side. But according to every archive and ad database, that crossover never happened. The Star of David appears on more flags than people remember. The Star of David, a 6-pointed hexagram composed of 2 overlapping triangles, is widely known today as the symbol of Judaism and is prominently featured on the national flag of Israel. That part is well known. But what surprises many people is discovering that the Star of David appears on other national or historical flags as well, ones they don't recall ever having any association with Judaism, Israel, or Jewish symbolism. For example, the flag of Rwanda from 1959 to 1962 featured a large green Star of David at the center. Beneath a red and yellow stripe, the flag belonged to the short-lived Kingdom of Rwanda before the country transitioned into a republic. Another example is the flag of Burundi used briefly during its post-colonial transition in the 1960s, which also incorporated a 6-pointed star in the center. Though not identical in meaning or usage to the Star of David, it's visually similar enough that many people report doing a double take when encountering it. There are also municipal flags and older European heraldry that incorporate hexagram patterns, including in places like Germany, Austria, and even in some medieval Christian iconography. Though they often held different meanings in those contexts, the common reaction among people encountering these flags is one of surprise or even discomfort. They say they have studied world flags, learned them in school, or browsed flag databases online, but never remember seeing the Star of David outside of Israel's flag. Yet, historical documentation confirms their existence. Archival photos, government records, and flag registries all verify the use of these designs during specific periods, even if they were short-lived. There's no indication that these flags were hidden or altered, only that their details seem to have escaped common memory, even among those who claim to have studied vexillology or world history. The Disney intro looked different. For decades, the opening sequence of a Disney film has been a symbol of childhood magic. Today's audience are familiar with the modern version: an elaborate 3D castle with fireworks, a sweeping camera shot, and a shimmering arc of light that passes overhead, all set to a rich orchestral fanfare. But many people who grew up watching Disney VHS tapes from the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s recall a very different intro, and when they revisit those films today, the intro they find often doesn't match what they remember. Some viewers remember the intro as being simpler, with a static blue background and a flat white outline of Cinderella's castle, accompanied by a soft chime or a few twinkling notes. Others recall the words Walt Disney Pictures appearing above or below the castle, and a single shooting star arcing over it. That version did exist, but even among those who remember it, the details are inconsistent. Adding to the confusion, Disney's intro has changed multiple times over the decades, from the early blue outline castle to the golden castle variant, and eventually to the full 3D animated sequence introduced in 2006. Each generation experienced a slightly different version, which has led to conflicting memories of what the real Disney intro looked like. Official film archives confirm the variations over time, but many viewers continue to express surprise when they revisit the older movies and find that the intro doesn't match what they thought they grew up with. The spelling of judgment. Wasn't there always an E? The word judgment is common in legal text, essays, and everyday conversation. It refers to decision-making, discernment, or an official ruling, a word many people saw on spelling tests and exams throughout school. But a growing number of people say the way it's spelled today looks wrong. They remember it as judgment, with an extra E between the G and the M. Some insist they were taught to spell it that way in school. Others say they've seen it printed in books, newspapers, and exams, especially in the UK, Australia, and even in certain US educational settings. When confronted with a version without the E, they pause. It doesn't look incorrect necessarily, just unfamiliar. According to most modern American English usage guides, judgment, without the A, is considered the standard spelling. This version is used in U.S. courts, legal documents, and most publications. Even Microsoft Word tends to autocorrect judgment to the shorter form in American English. But in British English, most spelling are technically correct, though judgment, with the extra E, is more commonly used in general writing. However, even in British legal context, judgment without the E is still often preferred in formal rulings and court decisions. This dual spelling system is not new. Both variants have coexisted for centuries, with different preference depending on region and formality. However, what many people find unsettling is how certain they were that only one version existed, and now they're seeing a version they don't remember encountering at all. Language does evolve, and regional difference do exist, but the intensity of this particular memory discrepancy has caused it to be frequently cited as a real-world example of the Mandela effect in spelling. Traffic light colors don't match some memories. Traffic lights are a basic part of everyday life. Red for stop, green for go, and yellow or amber for caution. For most people, it's one of the first systems of color recognition they learn, taught as early as preschool, and reinforced every day at crosswalks, intersections, and school zones. But surprisingly, there are people who remember the colors of traffic lights differently than how they appear today. The most common discrepancy is the green light. While officially green, some people recall it being more of a bluish green, or even straight blue in certain countries or periods. This isn't just a vague feeling. There are discussions where individuals claim they distinctly remember learning that the blue light means go, particularly those with international experience or from multilingual households. Others claim to remember yellow being more orange, or red being less vivid, closer to maroon or brick red. In Japan, this confusion is partially grounded in language. The word for green, midori, wasn't historically distinct from AO, the word for blue. Even today, Japan's green traffic lights often appear slightly blue-green, which has led to real-world confirmation of at least some variation. But in Western countries, the colors are standardized and strictly regulated. Traffic light specifications in the US, UK, Canada, and much of Europe all define green, red, and yellow tones within very specific ranges for color consistency and visibility. There has been no widespread shift in the color standards in modern history, yet the memory discrepancies persist. Some say the lights look more neon, brighter, or less saturated than they did decades ago. Others describe seeing old photographs or video footage where the green light appears blue, even accounting for lighting and camera differences. No official change has occurred. The standard traffic signal colors remain red, yellow, and green. Still, not everyone remembers it that way. The Ghostbusters logo facial expression looks different. The Ghostbusters logo is one of the most recognizable emblems in movie history, a cartoonish white ghost caught in the middle of a red no symbol, frozen mid-expression as it gets busted. First introduced in 1984, the logo has been plastered on everything from movie posters and lunchboxes to Halloween costumes and toy packaging. For most people, the image is deeply familiar, but when fans revisit the logo today, some say something feels off. Specifically, the ghost's facial expression isn't what they remember. Many recall the ghost having a smile, or at least a more mischievous or playful expression, as if it was cheekily trying to escape. Others remember the ghost looking startled or scared, with a distinct "oh no" expression, eyes wide, mouth open, eyebrows raised. But when you look at the logo today, across official merchandise and re-releases, the ghost's expression appears more neutral, or even slightly annoyed. Its mouth is open, but not in a smile or clear frown. Its eyes seem calm or focused, not fearful, and not gleeful either. This has caused noticeable confusion among longtime fans of the franchise. People who owned original Ghostbusters t-shirts, toys, or VHS copies from the 80s and 90s say the ghost definitely had a different face. Some claim that in early promotional material or spin-offs, the ghost had a grin or an exaggerated look of panic, features they no longer see in modern versions. Officially, the ghost's face in the primary logo has stayed largely consistent since the film's release. Minor variations have existed in animated spin-offs or special editions, but the theatrical version of the logo has remained the same. There's no record of a redesign that changed the ghost's expression. Yet for many, the difference is clear, not in the outline, but in the personality of the face. 9/11 happened on a different weekday. The attacks on September 11, 2001 are among the most defining events in modern history. The date is universally recognized, etched into global consciousness, and marked by ceremonies, documentaries, and memorials every year. Yet for an event so heavily documented, a peculiar detail often catches people off guard. Some people remember September 11, 2001 falling on a different day of the week. Officially, the attacks took place on a Tuesday. That date, Tuesday, September 11, 2001, is confirmed by calendars, news footage, and public records. It was a clear morning on the U.S. East Coast, and millions were either commuting to work or already at their desk when the first plane hit. But in online discussions and personal anecdotes, some people are surprised to learn, or relearn, that it was a Tuesday. They recall it being a Monday, a Wednesday, or even a weekend. A number of people describe being home from school, off work, or waking up later than usual, conditions that don't align with a standard Tuesday schedule. Others remember TV broadcasts referring to this Monday morning, or recall newspapers that gave the impression the event happened at the beginning of the week. Some say they associate the event with the start of a school week, even though most US schools had already begun by the Tuesday. No evidence that the weekday has ever been officially misreported. But despite this, the day-of-week mismatch is cited frequently in Mandela Effect discussions, especially among those who lived through the moment. They remember where they were, what they were doing, but not necessarily what day it was. Calendar archives, school records, and news timelines all confirm that September 11 occurred on a Tuesday. Yet for some, that detail still doesn't match their lived experience. The braces girl in Moonraker never had braces. In the 1979 James Bond film Moonraker, one of the more light-hearted subplots involves the villainous henchman Jaws, a towering man with deadly metal teeth, finding an unlikely romantic connection with a small, bespectacled blonde woman named Dolly. The meeting is brief but memorable. Dramatic orchestral music swells as they smile at each other for the first time. Jaws shows his signature metal grin. Dolly smiles back, and millions of viewers remember what made the moment work. She had braces. It's one of the most famously remembered moments from the Roger Moore Bond era. The audience laughs because Jaws, known for his terrifying steel bite, has found love with a woman who has matching metallic dental work. It's quirky, unexpected, visually clever. But according to every official release of Moonraker, Dolly never had braces. Rewatch the scene today, in theatrical versions, DVD releases, Blu-ray editions, and digital platforms, and you'll see Jaws smile wide, followed by Dolly's perfectly normal teeth. No wires, no metal, no braces of any kind. The rest of the scene is exactly as remembered. The music, the close-up, the smile. But the punchline, the moment that makes their connection funny and visually satisfying, appears to be missing. This discovery has caused widespread confusion. Many fans insist they clearly remember seeing the braces. Some say it was the only reason the scene made sense at all. Others say they even remember seeing it parodied, drawn in fan art, or referenced in comedy sketches, always with the braces as the central joke. The actress, Blanche Ravaillac, has confirmed in interviews that she never wore braces during filming. There are no deleted scenes or alternate cuts showing otherwise. The scene is exactly as it's always been, just not as many remember it. The Mona Lisa's eyes were looking to the left. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa is arguably the most famous painting in the world. Displayed behind bulletproof glass in the Louvre Museum, her enigmatic expression, subtle smile, and soft gaze have been studied for centuries. But a growing number of people remember one detail differently: her eyes. Specifically, they recall the Mona Lisa looking to the left, not directly at the viewer. Some say her gaze was soft, shy, and slightly averted. Others remember her head turned forward, but her eyes glancing off to the side. The direction may vary slightly in each person's recollection, but the core detail is the same. She was not looking straight at you. Yet today, when you stand in front of the painting or view any official reproduction, her eyes are clearly fixed forward. The gaze is direct and unwavering, a quality often cited as part of what makes the painting so psychologically intriguing. It's even been studied in visual perception research, with scholars noting the so-called Mandela Effect, in which a subject appears to follow the viewer with their eyes from any angle. Art historians and restorers confirm that the eyes have not changed. They have always been painted to face the viewer. Early sketches and photographs of the painting show the same orientation. There's no known restoration or retouching that altered the gaze. Still, the alternate memory persists. Some individuals recall being struck by the subtlety of her off-center gaze as students. Others say they remember seeing postcards or textbook covers where her eyes were clearly not meeting the viewer head-on. Even upon revisiting the painting today, many say they experience a strange sense of discomfort, like the image has shifted from the one they knew. There is no documented change to the Mona Lisa's eyes, no revision, no optical trick. And yet, for some, the way she looks back feels different. Double stuffed Oreos only have one F. For fans of Oreo cookies, the double stuffed variety is a familiar sight. 2 chocolate wafers sandwiched around a thick layer of sweet white filling. The name itself suggests a simple idea, more stuff than a regular Oreo. But there's something about the name that's been confusing people for years. Many people remember the packaging reading double stuff with 2 F's, the correct spelling of the word. But when they look at the box today, it clearly says double stuff with only 1 F. The spelling isn't new. In fact, double stuff has been the official name since the product launched in 1974. Nabisco, the brand behind Oreo, intentionally left off the second F as part of a branding decision, possibly to create a more stylized or catchy version of the word. Still, the single F surprised a lot of people, especially those who say they grew up eating double stuffed Oreos and never noticed the misspelling. Some say they remember seeing it printed with 2 F's in grocery store aisles. Others are convinced they saw TV commercials or magazine ads with the traditional spelling. A few even recall correcting people who misspelled it as stoof. There are no known rebrandings or spelling changes. Old packaging, advertisements, and product archives all show the same name, double stuff, 1 F. It appears to be a case where the correct spelling was so counterintuitive that the public collectively auto-corrected it in their minds. Judge Judy never used a gavel. For over 2 decades, Judge Judy was one of the most recognizable faces on daytime television. The show featured retired family court judge Judith Sheindlin, presiding over small claims cases, known for her sharp tone, fast rulings, and no-nonsense courtroom demeanor. But one commonly remembered detail about the show turns out to be false. Judge Judy never used a gavel, despite countless viewers recalling her slamming a wooden gavel at the end of cases, or using it to call order in the courtroom. There's no episode of Judge Judy where she ever used one. In fact, she never kept a gavel on the bench at all. This often comes as a surprise, especially for longtime fans of the show. The gavel is such a deeply associated symbol of courtroom authority that many people automatically picture her with one. Some say they can recall the sound of it hitting the desk, or even specific moments where she raised it in frustration, none of which ever actually happened on the program. This false memory is so common that it has been addressed by Judge Sheindlin herself in interviews. She has confirmed that she never used a gavel in the show, and rarely used one in her real courtroom career either. Instead, her verbal control and presence were her tools, and she rarely needed anything else to maintain order. Despite this, images of Judge Judy holding a gavel continue to appear in parody skits, Halloween costumes, memes, and promotional art. Even some unofficial merchandise shows her with one, reinforcing a version of the show that never existed. The gavel is a courtroom cliché, but in Judge Judy, it was never part of the format. The MGM Lion never roared the way people remember. For generations of moviegoers, the MGM Lion has been the signal that a film is about to begin. Surrounded by a golden ribbon of film in Latin text, the lion turns his head and lets out a roar. An image so iconic, it's nearly synonymous with cinema itself. But when people revisit the original openings, Many are left surprised or confused. The lion's roar doesn't sound like they remember. Some recall it being much louder, more intense, or drawn out. Others say the lion roared multiple times, or that it stood upright or looked more animated. A few even remember the roar beginning before the lion fully faced the camera, creating a more dramatic entrance. When you view the various MGM intros today, from classic films to modern re-releases, you'll notice several versions over the decades. Different lions were used at different points in time, including Slat, Silent Era, Jackie, the first with sound, and Leo, the current lion. But even the versions with sound have relatively short, muted roars that are far less dramatic than what many remember. Some viewers say they remember being startled by it in theater as children, or mimicking the lion's roar at home because of how powerful it sounded. But when they watch old intros today, the experience feels underwhelming. The roar is there, just not the way they thought it was. There's no confirmed change, no evidence of altered footage. But the way it lives in memory doesn't quite match the sound that plays on screen. The Henry VIII turkey leg painting never existed. Ask someone to describe a portrait of King Henry VIII, and many will bring up the same vivid image. A stout, powerful monarch in royal attire, one hand on his hip, and in the other, a large turkey leg, mid-bite or proudly held, as if symbolizing his indulgent lifestyle. It's a common mental picture. Some remember seeing it in history textbooks, museum illustrations, or satirical versions. The image of Henry VIII feasting with a giant piece of meat has become a cultural shorthand for greed, power, and Renaissance excess. But here's the problem. There is no historical painting of Henry VIII holding a turkey leg. Art historians confirm that no such portrait exists in the royal collection, the National Portrait Gallery, or any known historical archive. The famous full-body portrait by Hans Holbein the Younger, one of the most widely circulated images of Henry, shows him in regal pose, but with no food in hand. Despite this, the turkey leg image has become deeply embedded in pop culture. It appears in cartoons, comedy sketches, and reenactments, often used to exaggerate Henry's appetite and reputation for extravagance. Over time, many people seem to have absorbed this parody version into their memory of actual history. Some claim they were taught about it in school or saw it in an illustrated children's history book. Others remember it so clearly that they're surprised to find it missing, not just in museums, but from any verified source. There are certainly depictions of Henry VIII feasting, and numerous dramatic retelling highlight his lavish banquets, but no official portrait ever captured him mid-meal with a turkey leg in hand. Still, the image persists so vividly that it's often assumed to be real until proven otherwise. Mickey Mouse never wore suspenders. Mickey Mouse, the iconic mascot of the Walt Disney Company, has one of the most recognizable outfits in cartoon history. Large yellow shoes, white gloves, and red shorts with 2 white buttons. But there's one detail many people recall that doesn't appear on the character at all: suspenders. A surprising number of people say they remember Mickey Mouse wearing red suspenders, either attached to his shorts or stretched over his shoulders. Some describe them as thin red straps that matched his pants. Others recall black suspenders, sometimes crossing in the back, a design element they say they saw in older cartoons or on merchandise. But in every official depiction of Mickey Mouse, from his 1928 debut in Steamboat Willie to modern 3D animations, he has never worn suspenders. Disney's animation archives, style guides, and original drawings all confirm that Mickey's red shorts have 2 large buttons on the front, but no straps over the shoulders. Even in vintage merchandise, early black and white films, and promotional artwork, suspenders are completely absent. Despite this, the memory of Mickey wearing suspenders is widespread. Some people say they remember drawing him that way in childhood, or seeing him appear like that in lunchboxes, clothing, or parade costumes. A few even say the image of the 2 white buttons made them assume suspender must be there, and over time, their minds filled in the rest. This Mandela effect is often cited as one of the most subtle, not a dramatic contradiction, but a quiet misremembering of a character's outfit that feels completely certain to those who recall it differently. There is no known alternate version of Mickey Mouse with suspender in official Disney canon. The Matrix, What If I Told You, was never said. The Matrix, 1999, is one of the most quoted and referenced science fiction films of all time. From red pills to bullet time, it left a lasting cultural mark. And one of the most recognizable quotes associated with the movie is, "What if I told you everything you knew was a lie?" often paired with an image of Morpheus wearing sunglasses and staring directly into the camera. This line has appeared in memes, parodies, t-shirts, and internet debates for years. It's widely considered part of the film's defining dialogue, a moment of revelation as Morpheus offers Neo the chance to wake up from the illusion. But there's one issue. Morpheus never says that line in the movie. Despite this, the phrase has become deeply embedded in pop culture. The meme, typically featuring a still image of Morpheus and the text, "What if I told you?" spread widely online in the 2010s, often used to set up ironic or sarcastic statements, giving the illusion that it came straight from the movie. In the actual film, Morpheus does say several things that resemble the tone of the quote, including, "Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know, you can't explain. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes." But the exact phrase, "What if I told you everything you knew was a lie?" never happens. Risky Business. Tom Cruise didn't wear sunglasses in that scene. The 1983 film Risky Business helped launch Tom Cruise into stardom. Its most iconic scene is etched into pop culture. Cruise's character slides into frame across a hardwood floor in his socks, lip-syncing to Old Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger. For many, the image is clear: white dress shirt, no pants, socks, and, perhaps most memorably, black sunglasses. But when fans rewatch the scene today, they're often stunned to realize he's not wearing sunglasses at all. In the actual footage, Tom Cruise slides across the floor wearing a long-sleeve white button-down, boxer shorts, and no sunglasses. His face is fully visible throughout the scene. He dances, plays air guitar, and even jumps on the couch, all without ever putting on a pair of shades. This surprises many viewers who say they remember the sunglasses as part of the character's look in that moment, to the point that it's become a staple of parodies, costumes, Halloween outfits, and reference across media. Sunglasses are so strongly associated with the risky business scene that many assume they were a key part of the original. It's not a completely baseless association. Cruise does wear Ray-Ban Wayfarers at multiple points in the film, and the style became closely tied to the movie's popularity. But in the scene that everyone remembers, the one imitated and quoted for decades, he's not wearing them. And still, the image of him sliding in with sunglasses remains one of the most widely believed movie visuals that never actually happened. Billy Graham's death date confused many. Billy Graham, one of the most influential Christian evangelists of the 20th century, passed away on February 21st, 2018, at the age of 99. His death was widely reported, with tributes from global leaders and coverage across every major news outlet. Yet, for a surprising number of people, the announcement felt delayed, as if it had already happened years earlier. Some claim they remember seeing news of his death as far back as the 2000s or early 2010s. Others say they recall watching televised tributes, obituary segments, or even memorial special well before 2018. These weren't vague impressions. Many describe specific moments, such as family members reacting to the news, church service holding prayer acknowledgements, or classroom discussions referencing his passing. When the actual death was announced in 2018, some people were genuinely shocked, not because he died, but because they thought he had already been dead for years. There is no record of any mistaken report or high-profile death hoax regarding Billy Graham before 2018. His health had declined in his final years, and he had largely retired from public life, which may have contributed to the perception that he had already passed. Despite this, the belief that he died earlier than it reported remains a frequently mentioned example in Mandela Effect communities. The memory is often described as clear and detailed, not a passing mistake. Some even claim they remember media outlets confirming his death long before 2018, and were confused when no trace of those reports could be found later. Official records are clear. Billy Graham died on February 21st, 2018. There were no prior obituaries, premature announcements, or media errors. Still, the sense of déjà vu, of having already lived through his death once before, remains a persistent memory for many. Leonardo DiCaprio's Oscar win remembered earlier. For years, Leonardo DiCaprio was known not just for his acting, but for his lack of an Academy Award. Despite starring in blockbuster films and earning multiple nominations, he became the face of the phrase, always the nominee, never the winner. That's why his eventual Oscar win in 2016 for The Revenant was seen as a major cultural moment. The internet exploded, memes celebrated, articles called it long overdue. But for many people, there's something strange about the night. They remember DiCaprio winning an Oscar years earlier. Some say it was for The Wolf of Wall Street in 2014. Others think it was even earlier, but The Aviator, 2004, Blood Diamond, 2006, or The Departed, 2006. A few even recall his first win being for Titanic in 1997, even though he wasn't nominated that year at all. But according to the official Academy Awards record, DiCaprio was nominated 6 times before finally winning in 2016. He did not win for any of those earlier roles. There was no mistake. There is no evidence of an earlier win. But for many, the idea that Leonardo DiCaprio was already an Oscar winner before 2016 still feels true. Mongolia. Some don't recall it existing. Mongolia is a large landlocked country in East Asia, bordered by Russia to the north and China to the south. It was the heart of the Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan in the 13th century, and today it's a sovereign nation with a population of around 3.4 million people. Despite its deep historical significance and size, it's the 18th largest country in the world by land area. A surprising number of people report not remembering Mongolia existing as a modern country at all. Some say they thought Mongolia was just a region within China, or that it had long ago been absorbed into another country. Others say they've never seen it on a map until recently. A few remember learning about the Mongol Empire in school, but were unaware it still existed as an independent nation today. Even more puzzling, several people claim they were good at geography and insist that Mongolia wasn't there, or at least not labeled, on the maps they studied. Some say they recall a direct border between Russia and China, with no mention of a country in between. But Mongolia has been an independent state since 1921, gaining full international recognition in 1945. It became a democratic republic in 1992, following the fall of the Soviet Union, and it has held a seat at the United Nations since 1961. Its capital, Ulaanbaatar, is home to over 1.6 million people and appears in nearly all modern maps, atlases, and international databases. There is no record of Mongolia being erased or renamed, no cartographic error, no major political absorption that would explain its sudden appearance. Yet for many, the discovery of Mongolia as a modern, sovereign nation is unexpected, as if it appeared on the map long after it should have. The Challenger explosion date, remembered incorrectly. The Space Shuttle Challenger disaster is one of the most traumatic events in American history. On January 28, 1986, just 73 seconds after liftoff, the shuttle broke apart in mid-air, taking the life of all 7 crew members aboard, including teacher Krista McAuliffe, who had been chosen to join the mission as part of NASA's Teacher in Space project. The explosion was broadcast live across the country, including in many schools, and left a permanent mark on an entire generation. But despite how significant and widely witnessed the event was, many people remember the date of the explosion differently. Some believe it happened in 1984 or 1985. Others are certain it occurred later, in 1987 or even 1988. A few claim they were in a different grade or at a different school than they would have been in January 1986, based on when they recall watching the news coverage. Some remember being home during summer vacation, even though the event took place in the middle of the school year. Others insist it happened on a weekend, despite the fact that it occurred on a Tuesday. There are no discrepancies in the official timeline. The Challenger launched at 11:38 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on January 28, 1986, from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The explosion occurred at 73 seconds into the flight. The event was covered live and reported globally that same day. Despite this, the confusion surrounding the year, month, and even time of day has made this one of the more widely reported Mandela effects. Blood is red inside the body. For many people, high school biology taught a simple fact. Blood is red because of iron in hemoglobin, which binds with oxygen to carry it through the body. But a widespread belief persists and still circulates today that blood inside the body is blue and only turns red when it's exposed to air. This belief isn't just a passing idea. Some people say they were taught this in school, shown diagrams of blue veins with the explanation that deoxygenated blood is blue, while oxygenated blood is red. Others recall textbooks that reinforced this explanation, using blue to represent blood in the veins and red for blood in the arteries. But medically and scientifically, this isn't accurate. Blood is always red, bright red when it's oxygen-rich in arteries, darker red when it's low in oxygen in veins. It never turns blue at any point in its circulation through the human body. The confusion likely comes from how veins appear blue or greenish beneath the skin, especially in people with lighter skin tones. However, this has more to do with how light penetrates the skin and reflects back than with the actual color of the blood inside. Additionally, medical illustrations and school diagrams often use blue and red to differentiate between oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, which may have contributed to the misunderstanding over time. Still, many people remain surprised to learn that blood doesn't change color upon exposure to air. The sky looks a different color than it used to. Most people grow up learning that the sky is blue. On a clear day, it stretches from horizon to horizon in a color so common that it's considered one of the first things children learn to describe. But many people today claim that the sky no longer looks like it did before. Specifically, they say the sky used to be a deeper, richer shade of blue, especially during midday. A strong, almost saturated tone that seemed to glow against white clouds. Now, some report the sky looks paler, more washed out, or even white or grayish blue, even on sunny days. This observation has been echoed in forums, casual conversations, and Mandela Effect communities, where people discuss the change not as a weather pattern, but as something fundamentally different about the atmosphere or light itself. Some point to memories from the 1980s or 1990s, saying the blue then was bolder, while today it feels dull or artificially softened. A few even recall comparing crayon colors or classroom posters to the real sky, and say those older references don't match what they see today. The color of the sky can vary based on air quality, humidity, pollution, altitude, season, and time of day. It's possible that factors like increased airborne particulates or changing climate conditions have made the sky appear slightly different in some areas over time. But for those who remember a clear or almost cinematic blue from their childhood, the change doesn't feel subtle. It feels like the sky itself has shifted. There are no official reports of atmospheric color changes, no alterations in human color perception. Yet for some, the sky simply doesn't look the way it used to. Adult sunflowers no longer track the sun. It's one of those facts you probably learned as a child. Sunflowers follow the sun. You were told they turn their face east in the morning and then gently rotate westward throughout the day, like nature's own solar panel, always chasing the light. Some people even remember watching time-lapse videos in school, showing sunflower heads sweeping across the sky like clock hands. But here's something that's starting to confuse a lot of people. Adult sunflowers don't follow the sun at all. According to modern botanical studies, only young, developing sunflowers, before they bloom, exhibit heliotropism, the scientific term for tracking the sun's movement. As they mature, their stems stiffen and they stop moving entirely, usually locking in place facing east. This has led to a strange reaction online. People saying they distinctly remember adult sunflowers moving. They're not talking about little sprouts. They remember fully grown, flowering sunflowers turning throughout the day. Some say they saw it happen in real life, on farms, or in gardens. Others swear they were taught this as fact in elementary school science books. Now they're looking it up and being told it's not true. There are no recent changes to plant biology, no new discoveries overturning an old myth. The official explanation has always been that heliotropism only applies to immature sunflowers, and this is now widely documented in agriculture and botany research. So why do so many remember it differently? Some believe it's a case of misinterpreting behavior, noticing slight shift caused by wind or morning positioning and assuming motion. Others say this could be an example of childhood information simplified for easier understanding, which became internalized as fact. And of course, there are those who suggest this is yet another quiet rewrite of what we thought we knew about the natural world. The science says sunflowers don't move once they bloom, but for many people, something about that just doesn't feel natural. Jesse never said, "Yeah, science," in the critically acclaimed series Breaking Bad. Jesse Pinkman, played by Aaron Paul, is known for his chaotic energy, street-smart attitude, and frequent use of the word "b" in his dialogue. One of the most quoted and memified lines from the show is, "Yeah, science, b." It appears in GIFs, on merchandise, and in thousands of internet posts referencing Jesse's rare bursts of enthusiasm for chemistry. It's become part of how people remember the character, a perfect blend of his tone, attitude, and relationship with Walter White. But here's the strange part. That exact line, in that exact form, is not in the show. In Season 1, Episode 7, a no rough stuff type deal, Jesse reacts to Walter demonstrating how red phosphorus can be used to create a flash explosion. Jesse responds with excitement, and what he actually says is, "Yeah, science." Nowhere in a scene, or any other in the series, does Jesse say, "Yay, science," in one clean line. And yet, that version is widely remembered, quoted, and printed as if it were a direct line from the show. Still, many people are convinced they heard it directly, that Jesse looked at Walt after a breakthrough and shouted the now iconic phrase exactly as is quoted in memes, but the actual line, as delivered in the show, is simpler. Abraham Lincoln's top hat, missing from memory. When most people picture Abraham Lincoln, the image is immediate and iconic, tall and thin, with a beard, a solemn expression, and, almost always, a black top hat. The stovepipe hat became such a fixture in the way Lincoln has been portrayed in films, textbooks, and museum displays that it's almost impossible to separate it from his identity. It's not just a fashion detail, it's a symbol of the man himself. Yet, many people are surprised when they revisit historical portraits and notice the top hat is missing. In the vast majority of surviving official photographs of Abraham Lincoln, he is not wearing a hat at all. These include formal studio portraits, cabinet photos, and iconic images like the one used for the U.S. penny. Lincoln appears bareheaded in almost all of them. This realization caused confusion, especially for those who remember learning about Lincoln in school with the top hat as a defining visual. Some recall seeing drawings, posters, or figurines where the hat was always present. A few even say they thought he wore it all the time, or that they saw photos of him wearing it, only to find those images now rare or non-existent. The truth is that Lincoln did frequently wear a top hat in public appearances, especially during speeches and political events. He was known for placing notes in speeches inside his hat. He was wearing one the night he was assassinated at Ford's Theater in 1865, and that specific hat is preserved today at the Smithsonian Institution. However, most of the well-known photographic portraits were taken indoors and without the hat. As a result, the hat is present in cultural memory, but absent from most historical records. The Air Jordan logo. Wearing pants, not shorts. The Air Jordan Jumpman logo is one of the most recognized symbols in the world. A silhouette of Michael Jordan mid-air, legs extended, arm raised, ball in hand. Most people remember it clearly. The pose, the movement, and most notably, the shorts. That's why many are confused when they look closely at the logo today and realize he's not wearing shorts, he's wearing pants. This catches longtime fans off guard. Some say they remembered the silhouette showing bare calves, a visible gap between the shoes and the shorts, especially because the Jordan brand has always been tied to basketball culture, where shorts are the norm. But when you examine the current and historical version of the Jumpman logo, it clearly shows a full-length tracksuit or athletic pants, without any leg separation or exposed skin. The logo is based on a photo taken during a 1984 Nike photo shoot, where Michael Jordan wore a full jumpsuit, not basketball shorts. That image was later turned into the logo silhouette we know today. It was never a game photo, and the attire was never intended to reflect his on-court uniform. Still, the belief that he wore basketball shorts in the logo is surprisingly common. Many fans say they remember seeing older Air Jordan boxes, posters, or shoe tongues where the logo had visible shorts. Others insist they used to trace or draw the logo as kids and clearly recall shorts and bare legs. A few even describe the contrast between his exposed legs and shoes as being part of what made the silhouette feel more athletic. There is no record of Nike ever changing the Jumpman's outfit. The pants have always been part of the original logo, even though it contradicts how many people pictured for decades. Ariel's starfish bra that never existed. In Disney's The Little Mermaid, 1989, Ariel is one of the most iconic animated characters ever created. A wide-eyed, red-haired mermaid with a green tail, purple seashell bra, and a fascination with the human world. But a surprising number of people, including Disney fans, clearly remember something different about her design. Ariel wearing a starfish bra. Specifically, some say they remember her wearing 2 pink or gold starfish covering her chest, either in official artwork, old merchandise, or storybooks from the 90s. A few recall the starfish being more natural or oceanic looking, less stylized than the clean, symmetrical seashells seen in the movie. Others say they even owned dolls or lunchboxes where Ariel had visible starfish as part of her top. However, in all official versions of the film, including the original theatrical release, Ariel has always worn a purple seashell bra. There's no evidence that Disney ever animated her wearing starfish. No early concept art showed that design, and no alternate scenes or prototypes have surfaced confirming any such version. So where did the memory come from? Some speculate that other mermaid designs from different animated shows or toy lines in the 1980s and 1990s may have featured starfish bras, and those images got blended with Ariel's appearance over time. Others point to unofficial fan art, Halloween costumes, or even parody animations that may have featured Ariel or mermaid lookalikes with starfish instead of shells. The confusion is especially strong among those who say they remember the starfish being officially licensed, sold on lunchboxes or backpacks, and described in storybook narrations. But according to Disney's archives and all existing media, Ariel's character model has remained entirely consistent since 1989. There was never a starfish bra. The piranha plant everyone remembers in Mario's first level. If you played Super Mario Bros. On the original NES, you probably think you know World 1-1 by heart. It's one of the most familiar levels in video game history, filled with Goombas, floating bricks, green pipes, and question blocks, and almost everyone remembers this. A red piranha plant popping out of one of those early green pipes. But if you load up the game today and carefully run through World 1-1, something feels off. The piranha plant isn't there. There are 4 main pipes in the first level. They're tall, green, and look exactly like the kind piranha plants usually emerge from. But in World 1-1, none of them have enemies inside. Not a single piranha pops out. They're just decorative. This comes as a surprise to players who swear they remember timing their jumps to avoid the chomping plants, especially at the second or third pipe near the Goombas. Some even remember getting hit by one of them on their first playthrough, as if it was the first real hazard that taught them how dangerous pipes could be. Yet the original game data is consistent. Piranha plants do not appear in World 1-1. They are introduced for the first time in World 1-2, the underground level that follows. Despite this, countless players remember dodging a red piranha plant in the very first level. Why the confusion? It's possible that the green pipes in 1-1 are so visually identical to those in later levels that players mentally merge them. Others blame it on the repetitive nature of early Mario levels, where similar background elements made the placement of enemies easy to misremember. But for those who grew up thinking the very first pipe could bite, the silence feels wrong. Metal can't go in the microwave, or can it? For decades, one kitchen rule has been drilled into people's heads: never put metal in the microwave. It's one of the first warnings given when learning to use one. Schools teach it, parents repeat it. Even microwaves themselves often come with bold warning label about fires, sparks, and explosions if you dare put in a fork, spoon, or even foil. But here's where things get strange. Many people have discovered, often by accident, that certain types of metal don't spark at all. And for some, the realization is deeply unsettling. They remember clearly metal instantly sparking when microwaved. Even a tiny spoon or foil edge causing crackling lights and danger. Microwaves short-circuiting or breaking down from the smallest metal item. Yet others report heating metal travel mugs, aluminum containers, or even foil-wrapped items with no issues at all. In fact, modern microwave-safe cookware sometimes includes small pieces of metal trim, and prepackaged meals often come with foil-like crisping sleeves designed specifically to be microwaved. The widespread belief that any metal equals instant danger persists so strongly that people are shocked when metal doesn't spark at all. Some report that they accidentally microwaved foil as kids, saw it spark, and were warned never to try it again. Now they're discovering that some of those rules aren't as fixed as they were told. Metal in the microwave? Some say it was never safe, and now they're not so sure anymore. Van Gogh cut off his ear, but why? Most people know Vincent van Gogh, the troubled post-impressionist painter behind The Starry Night, for two things: his iconic swirling canvases, and the fact that he cut off his own ear. It's one of the most famous and mysterious stories in art history. But when you ask people why Van Gogh cut off his ear, the answers vary, and more than a few are entirely different from what modern historians suggest. Some remember learning in school that Van Gogh cut off his ear for love, supposedly after a breakup or to impress a woman. Others believe he gave the ear to a prostitute as a twisted romantic gesture. A few were taught that he did it out of rage during a fight with another artist, or that it was simply an act of madness triggered by his mental illness. Yet when we examine the story more closely, it becomes harder to pin down. The commonly accepted version today is that in December 1888, after a heated argument with fellow artist Paul Gauguin, Van Gogh suffered a severe psychological breakdown. That night, he cut off part of his left ear, not the entire ear, and brought it to a woman working at a brothel in Arles, France. But the motive? Still debated. Some sources claim he did it out of remorse, not romance, as an apology to Gauguin after their explosive confrontation. Others say it was the result of increasing psychosis, possibly linked to untreated epilepsy, lead poisoning, or bipolar disorder. The idea of giving it to a prostitute as a gift was repeated in popular media, but lacks consistent historical evidence. And yet the version many remember is simpler. He cut off his ear because of love. The act itself is confirmed, but why it happened? That part seems to have changed. The golden chalice is missing from The Last Supper. Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper is one of the most studied and recognized paintings in Western history, depicting Jesus and his 12 apostles gathered for their final meal. The mural has been reproduced endlessly in books, churches, documentaries, and pop culture. But for many people, something is missing when they look at the painting today: the golden chalice. Some viewers recall there being a large, ornate cup or goblet placed in front of Jesus, traditionally understood to be the Holy Grail, the vessel he used during the First Communion. It's a central object in countless depictions of the event, and for many, it feels inseparable from the image itself. But when you look closely at the Last Supper today, there's no golden chalice, no glowing cup, no clearly defined Holy Grail. In Da Vinci's original mural, the table is filled with simple dishes, bowls, bread, and wine glasses, but none of the cups are golden or central. The objects are scattered casually across the table. If Jesus is holding or referencing a cup, it's subtle and not visually emphasized. And yet many people distinctly remember a single golden cup placed at the center of the table, often glowing or symbolically highlighted, either in Jesus' hands or positioned directly in front of him. Some even recall seeing it in textbooks, Sunday school illustrations, or learning specifically that Da Vinci painted the Holy Grail as a focal point. Others say they remember the cup being stolen or missing from the painting in later reproductions, as if it was once there, then removed or downplayed. But there's no evidence of any such change. The mural has undergone restoration, but the composition has remained faithful to Leonardo's original layout. There never was a golden chalice in the Last Supper, at least not in Da Vinci's version, and yet many remember it as if it were the most important object in the entire scene. Jif versus Jiffy, the peanut butter brands that never existed. Ask anyone to name a popular peanut butter brand, and chances are they'll say Jiffy, the smooth, sweet peanut butter that's been around since the 1950s. In fact, many people distinctly remember a peanut butter brand called Jiffy, with a logo, commercial jingles, and packaging that they insist they saw as kids. Some say it was Jiffy with a red or blue lid, and others even recall parents telling them to grab the Jiffy from the pantry. But here's the catch. Jiffy peanut butter has never existed. The brand has always been Jif, launched in 1958 by Procter & Gamble and currently owned by the J.M. Smucker Company. The logo, packaging, and branding materials all say Jif, with no documented name change or rebrand from Jiffy at any point in its history. It's possible that these similar sounds and brand tones blur together over time, especially for people who grew up seeing both products side by side on grocery store shelves. A few also speculate that early commercials with fast speech may have made the word Jif sound like Jiffy. Still, the memory is vivid for many. Some even claim they remember seeing a Jiffy label, or that it was listed in store circulars, but there is no evidence in product archives, trademark database, or advertising history to support the idea that Jiffy peanut butter ever existed. Green Lantern's boots were actually green, not white. The Green Lantern is one of DC Comics' most recognizable heroes, wielding a ring that channels willpower into green light, wearing a sleek costume that's become a comic book staple. For many fans, that costume includes a few essentials: green chest emblem, white gloves, black pants, and most notably, white boots. At least, that's how many people remember it. But here's the strange part. The Green Lantern's boots were never white. In nearly all canonical comics appearances, especially for Hal Jordan, the most iconic version of the character, the boots are green, matching his chest and shoulders. The green often blends into black tights, but the boots themselves are not white, despite countless people remembering them that way. Some fans say they can clearly picture white boots, possibly with a faint green glow or lining. Others remember Halloween costumes, old animated series, or toys that show the Green Lantern with white footwear, similar to how Superman and the Flash have contrasting boot colors. And yet, when you review comic panels, action figure packaging, and animation stills, including Justice League Unlimited and earlier versions like Super Friends, the boots are consistently green. No official redesign removed white boots. No early issues depict them. They've been green from the start. So why do so many people remember it differently? Some speculate that the contrast between the white gloves and the darker legs create an unintentional visual trick, making the lower portion of the costume feel brighter in memory. Others think it might be the result of low-res video games, bootleg costumes, or stylized coloring that made the boots appear white in certain lighting. The misremembering is persistent, and for fans who always thought Green Lantern had white boots, the truth feels like a strange costume swap that never actually happened. Tyler, the creator, the comma that was always there. For over a decade, Tyler, the creator, has been one of the most innovative names in hip-hop, known for his bold visuals, eccentric personality, and genre-bending albums like Goblin, Flower Boy. But many fans have recently realized something strange. They always thought his name was spelled Tyler the Creator, with no comma. Now, they're seeing it everywhere as Tyler the Creator, with a comma between Tyler and the Creator, and they're not sure when that changed. The comma is present in his album covers, official music credits, social media bios, award show nominations, even his Grammy win listings. Yet a significant number of fans insist that they never saw the comma before. Some claim they followed him since the Odd Future days, and that all the early mixtapes, Tumblr posts, or fan-made merch featured the name without punctuation. Others say they remember searching for Tyler the Creator online and never once being corrected, even though official sources have used the comma for years. So where does the memory gap come from? It may be that commas are often dropped in casual writing, especially on social media or in text messages. Most stylized artist names don't include punctuation, making the comma in Tyler the Creator feel unnatural or easy to ignore. Over time, fans may have collectively internalized the name without it. Objects in mirror may be closer than they appear, but that's not the line. Almost everyone who's driven a car in the US has seen the safety warning etched into the passenger side mirror. So familiar that many can quote it without looking. Most people remember it as, objects in mirror may be closer than they appear. But here's the strange part. That's not what it says. The actual warning, printed on virtually every passenger side mirror for decades, is, objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Not maybe, are. It's a subtle difference, just one word, but for a surprising number of people, it feels completely wrong. The version with maybe is what they remember seeing, saying, or hearing reference in movies and everyday conversation. Some say they remember it with maybe since childhood, or recall parents or driving instructors quoting it that way. Others insist they've seen the phrase on their own vehicle, only to double check now and find the R version instead. This Mandela effect has confused even longtime drivers. A few even claim they've seen parody version with the maybe line printed clearly, reinforcing the incorrect version in memory. The truth? The phrase, are closer than they appear, has been the standard since the 1970s, required by US federal regulations for convex passenger mirrors. It's meant to give a definitive warning, not a possibility, hence the use of are, not maybe. And yet, for many, the version with maybe feels like the one they grew up with. There was no rewording, no subtle government change, just a misremembered phrase, one that's always been right in front of your eyes. The Great Pyramids were isolated, or were they? The Pyramids of Giza are some of the most iconic monuments on Earth. Massive stone structures standing for thousands of years in what many consider the heart of the Egyptian desert. For generations, people around the world have shared a clear image of them. Ancient wonders surrounded by nothing but sand and sky. But if you look up the pyramid today, through satellite images, drone footage, or even Google Maps, you'll see something unexpected. The pyramids aren't in the middle of nowhere. They're on the edge of a sprawling urban city. Just beyond the monuments lies modern Cairo, complete with apartment buildings, shops, streets, traffic, and suburbs. The separation between the ancient world and modern civilization is not miles of open desert, but a matter of a few hundred meters. From certain angles, it almost looks like the city and the pyramids exist side by side, like neighbors from different timelines. This discovery surprised many people who grew up seeing the pyramids in a very different way. In textbooks, travel ads, and school documentaries, they appear completely isolated. For some, it wasn't just an assumption, it was a vivid, specific memory. Tourists on camelback riding through endless sand dunes, panoramic shots that showed nothing but horizon, and no sign of human development anywhere nearby. So how do these two realities exist? In truth, the city of Cairo has expanded gradually over decades, but it has long been near the Giza Plateau. What changed, for many, is perspective. Most photos and videos of the pyramids are taken from angles that deliberately avoid the city, a creative choice designed to preserve the sense of timelessness. The framing we've been exposed to for years shaped our memory of the site far more than its actual geography. What some see now as a Mandela effect may in fact be the result of consistent presentation bias, reinforced over time until the idea of isolation became the accepted truth, even if it was never entirely accurate. Still, for those who remember an empty desert, the city feels like it appeared out of nowhere. The bucket list wasn't a thing until 2007. Today, the phrase bucket list is everywhere, used to describe a personal collection of things you want to do before you die. Skydiving, seeing the northern lights, visiting Tokyo. It's such a common term that most people assume it's been around forever. But here's the strange thing. The phrase didn't appear in mainstream usage until 2007. When the film The Bucket List, starring Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, hit theaters, and according to historical records, that's when the term actually originated, or at least that's when it first entered wide cultural awareness. Before 2007, there are virtually no published uses of the phrase bucket list in books, newspapers, or even early internet forums. The term itself is a play on the expression kick the bucket, a colloquialism for dying, meaning a bucket list is literally a list of things to do before you kick the bucket. But here's where the Mandela effect sets in. Many people clearly remember using the phrase before 2007. Some say they wrote down a bucket list in the early 2000s or even the late 90s. Others recall high school teachers using the term during motivational speeches or hearing it in family conversations. A few even claim they had early blogs or journals that included the phrase well before the movie ever came out. And yet, when they try to find evidence of those early uses, nothing surfaces. No books, no quotes, no trace of it in pop culture before the film's release. This raised a classic Mandela Effect question. Was the term always there? Or did it suddenly appear in our vocabulary out of nowhere? Linguistic experts agree the phrase likely originated with the 2007 film, which helped introduce and popularize it worldwide. It may have existed in isolated or informal setting beforehand, but if so, it was never documented or widely known. Still, for many, the idea that such a common phrase didn't exist until the 21st century feels completely wrong. They didn't learn it from a movie, they were already using it. The robber emoji that never existed. In the age of texting, memes, and social media, emoji have become part of how we communicate emotion, identity, and humor. There are thousands of them. Faces, animals, food, flags, professions. We use them daily without even thinking. But for a surprising number of people, there's one emoji that seems to have disappeared. They remember a robber emoji, a cartoon thief with a striped black and white shirt, black beanie, eye mask, and sometimes a money bag or a sneaky grin. It was used in group chat to represent stealing memes, joking about bad behavior, or playfully calling someone a thief. And yet, when they go to find it today, they're met with confusion. It doesn't exist. Search through Apple, Android, Google, WhatsApp, and Unicode consortium records, and you'll find no trace of a robber emoji ever being released. There are police officers, detectives, and even a ninja. But the cartoonish thief, the robber emoji so many people remember using, is nowhere to be found. This isn't just a hazy memory. Some users say they used it frequently, even pairing it with a money bag or sneaky face. Others remember seeing it in meme templates or iPhone keyboards around 2015 to 2018. A few even insist they saw it in their emoji list, right next to the criminal police emoji, like part of a theme set. So how did this memory form? There are a few possibilities. Some apps and sticker packs, like Bitmoji, Line, or Telegram, use custom sticker-style robber images, which could have been mistaken for Unicode emojis. Others think the design may have come from Snapchat filters, old browser games, or WhatsApp sticker collections, but that doesn't explain why so many people remember it as a standard emoji, searchable, clickable, and built into their keyboard. There's no deletion notice, no Unicode record, no patch notes removing it from devices. The robber emoji was never there, but somehow, we all remember stealing it.